Again, this is very uncommon, and I would not panic. I think following the public health measures as outlined by the World Health Organization and each country specifically is key to stopping the spread of the current outbreak. And then if you do happen to see rodent droppings, as was previously mentioned, we usually have people decontaminate with Lysol. So spray Lysol, wear a mask, don't sweep up anything for at least 30 minutes. Open up and allow ventilation to help protect from the virus.
Michelle Harkins, Emma Hodcroft and Angela Rasmussen sharing their expertise on hantavirus. Let's return now to Christian and Lorne. I asked them how their lives had changed since recovering from the disease.
For me, I forget about it, but I don't forget about the medical system, the team of doctors and nurses that helped save me and bring me back to life. And I'm very grateful for that. And for that reason, I've joined our local healthcare foundation to help raise money to do medical equipment and be able to do renovations to expand our facilities and try and give back to the medical system for helping them save me.
I didn't stop something. I started something. I started reading. Since 7 years, I'd say every week I read a book. Right now it's autumn, Ellie Smith. So maybe it's a way to spend time for me.
Everything's all relative, but the degree of illness, the sickness that I went through was hell on earth. It was torture to go through that and to be able to bounce back.
I'd say that one becomes somewhat more humble even with my illness. So it's not that big. It was hard days, but there are many, many people suffering more than me.
Christian and Lorne sharing their experiences of hantavirus. Our thanks so much to them and to all of our other guests this week. I'm James Reynolds. You've been listening to BBC Conversations from the BBC World Service.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in today from Marcy Marcusa. Let's say hello to the crew helping put together today's show. Abby Adeyemi is our studio technician and keeping an eye on your weather. Sierra Sanders is our studio director today, and she will be keeping an eye on your commute. And Darren Morash is our YouTube producer and keeping an eye on your, YouTube. Also, good morning to Heather Wells, who's in now with a look at your news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a 60 Scoop survivor raised in the U.S. has been reunited with her family after knowing nothing about them for decades. Melody Roberts hugged two of her surviving siblings after landing in Winnipeg this long weekend. The 66-year-old from Eugene, Oregon, says she only learned they existed when an outreach worker tracked her down, asking if she wanted to meet them. She says she had mixed emotions, but is now very glad she's met her sister and brothers. U.S. liquor is back on Manitoba shelves at a discount price. The province removed U.S. booze from liquor stores last year as part of retaliatory moves against American tariffs. Now it's offering a discount. An American agriculture policy expert says the U.S. liquor industry has lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and the impact could still be felt for years to come. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Right now in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 1 right now at the Forks, warming up today to a high of 9. There's still about a 30% chance or so of drizzle or rain throughout the day, and this kind of looks like the last day for a while, at least, with highs below 10. Tomorrow the high is going to be 17, and then 19 the day after, and then we hit into the 20s after that. Brandon, right now, you're actually still under a frost warning, so hopefully you covered up some of your plants. If you did have some plants going up, you're sitting at 2 right now, heading for a high today of 12. And Thompson right now, you are at 0, heading for a high today of 11. Still to come here on the show, we're going to go to Ottawa and check in with Toronto Star reporter Alex Ballingall about what happens when the federal government's deal, what happens with the federal government's deal with Alberta for a new pipeline. That and much, much more coming up right here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be back after World Report.
on Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. Behind big music stars Canadians love, people like Michael Bublé, Anne Murray, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Jan Arden, Bryan Adams, there's the legendary manager Bruce Allen. He's finally getting his laurels, and we're putting him under the spotlight to tell his story.
To have a great band, you have to have a great leader.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Helen Mann. U.S. federal, state and local police are tracing the steps of two teenagers who opened fire outside a mosque in California. 3 people are dead after the attack at the Islamic Center of San Diego. The suspects are believed to have died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. As Steve Futterman reports, this is being investigated as a hate crime.
Investigators here say they know who did it. They also believe they know the basic motive: anti-Islamic hate. That still doesn't explain the troubling question: what triggered 2 teenagers, 17 and 18, to carry out the deadly attack, then, according to police, kill themselves? The attack occurred just before noon at San Diego's largest mosque, which also houses an elementary school and a middle school. The 2 gunmen never got inside any of the buildings. They were confronted by a security guard and 2 staff members of the school. All 3 were killed by the gunmen.
We were having lunch and I heard at least a dozen shots.
This neighbor was nearby when the attack took place.
Then I called 911.
The security guard is being labeled as a hero who very possibly prevented additional deaths. San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall.
The security guard was able to minimize the situation to the front area of the mosque. I don't want to speculate, but at this point, I think it's fair to say his actions were heroic, and undoubtedly he saved lives today.
Authorities have recovered what they describe as hate-filled writings. One of the guns used in the attack had hate language etched onto the weapon. 2 hours before the shootings, the mother of one of the gunmen alerted law enforcement, saying her son had taken a number of weapons from the home. Police desperately tried to locate the teenager's vehicle to prevent a possible attack, but could not do so in time. Steve Futterman, CBC News, San Diego.
The number of deaths linked to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is rising rapidly. The World Health Organization says there are now 130 suspected deaths and 500 presumed cases of the virus. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is the head of the WHO. He says quick action is needed.
I'm deeply concerned about the scale and the speed of the epidemic. We will convene the emergency committee today to advise us on temporary recommendations.
Tedros says he is concerned the outbreak is now spreading to urban areas where it can quickly infect more people. He also says there is no vaccine for this particular strain of Ebola. The WHO is releasing close to $4 million to help governments fight the outbreak. The future of the controversial Churchill Falls hydroelectric station is back in the spotlight today. A review of a new memorandum of understanding between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is to be released. It could lead to a financial windfall for St. John's. As Julia Israel reports, critics of the original 1969 energy deal say it was heavily weighted in Quebec's favour.
It's clearly always been and should always be about the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and making sure we get the best deal possible.
Premier Tony Wakeham talking about a new energy deal for the Churchill Falls Power Station in Labrador. Wakeham's criticism of the tentative agreement brought by the former Liberal government was a key part of his election campaign last fall. The original Churchill Falls deal has been mired in controversy and resentment since 1969. Newfoundland and Labrador sells the vast majority of its produced hydro energy to Quebec for peanuts. That is set to continue until 2041. But in 2024, that contract was performatively ripped up.
And we are endeavoring to
by 2 premiers no longer in the picture. An independent review committee has since focused on what the latest memorandum of understanding means for Newfoundland and Labrador. Opposition energy critic Fred Hutton says it could change everything.
This is about, the future of the province in terms of a monumental shift in the economy here, and there's been nothing like it ever.
There's Quebec, desperate for electricity, with demand expected to double by 2050. And Ottawa also aiming to double the country's electricity output by that same target. Last week, Mark Carney said in French, the federal government could potentially provide a complement of solutions. Newfoundland and Labrador is desperate to fill its fiscal sinkhole with the billions promised in this agreement, while also determined not to let mistakes be repeated. Julia Israel, CBC News, St. John's.
Canada's finance minister is in Paris right now. It's the second day of talks for François-Philippe Champagne and his G7 counterparts. So far, their agenda is dominated by the Iran war and its effects on the global economy.
This is the largest energy challenge that we have faced in generations. So we're all looking at what we can do to ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Champagne says the group also discussed food security. Today's meetings are expected to focus on strategies to tackle terrorist funding and major financial crimes. The Carney government is on a mission to ramp up construction across Canada. Over the next decade, it aims to build millions of new homes that are cheaper and more sustainable. But a new report looking at buildings here in Canada and around the world says they're still a major source of carbon emissions. The CBC's Nick Logan explains.
From construction to everyday energy use, homes and buildings account for about 37% of climate-harming emissions globally. That's according to a new report co-published by the United Nations Environment Program. It lays out the case for lowering the carbon footprint of buildings and the construction sector.
Making better access to affordable homes is a real key priority.
Ian Hamilton is one of the lead authors.
The key thing in that type of policy will be, is it homes that are going to be low cost and energy efficient? So they're affordable on multiple fronts, not just affordable to purchase, but affordable to operate.
The report explains how climate-conscious construction can reduce energy bills, improve living conditions, and strengthen resilience to the effects of climate change, all while cutting greenhouse gas emissions.
We see lots of improvements due to these new building codes and improved construction methods.
Betsy Agar is with Efficiency Canada. She says there has been a lot of progress when it comes to making new homes and buildings more efficient. But she says it's a different situation with what's already been built.
And that remains our biggest challenge, which is a challenge internationally.
She says existing constructions make up a big part of the emissions from energy usage, but they could also create a long-term opportunity with retrofits, creating new jobs, improving energy efficiency, and eventually lowering costs for Canadians. Nick Logan, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some women in the Halifax area are decrying what they call an unacceptable wait for a mammogram. There are ongoing staffing challenges, and right now screening appointments are being booked well into next year. The CBC's Carolyn Ray reports.
I think we need to have a voice, and I think we need to make changes.
Cynthia McCutcheon thought she was being proactive by calling now to book her mammogram for the fall. But she was left speechless when the booking clerk told her the next available appointment in the Halifax area.
Well, when she started to say July, I was thinking, oh, that's a little bit too early. And then when she threw in 2027, I was really shocked.
Nova Scotia's wait times are now twice as long as Prince Edward Island. Some clinics in Toronto book within 2 weeks. Cheryl Coolin, who also lives in Halifax, found a lump in her breast last year. She's supposed to be checked every 6 months, but her next appointment isn't until next April.
Here I am supposedly at risk, and I have to wait. How many people are going undiagnosed?
According to the Canadian Cancer Society, Nova Scotia has the lowest survival rate of breast cancer in the country. The province's breast screening program is run by the IWK Health Centre. It says the biggest challenge is staffing. There's a national shortage of medical radiation technologists. In Nova Scotia, there's a 30% vacancy rate. McCutcheon says she knows all too well the importance of catching problems early. Her grandmother died of breast cancer.
Why are women in Nova Scotia being penalized?
The IWK is telling the women to keep calling in hopes of landing a cancellation. But even then, those last-minute appointments could be anywhere in the province. Carolyn Ray, CBC News, Halifax.
Canada's Defence Minister David McGuinty will be making an announcement shortly at the Saskatchewan base of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. His visit comes amid speculation about the future of the Aerial Acrobatic Squadron. Since 1971, the snowbirds have performed at thousands of air shows. McGuinty has said the aircraft fleet is approaching the end of its life, and air demonstrations can continue only as long as the planes are safe. The federal government has apparently been looking for replacement options, but it's not clear how long the snowbirds can perform. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Helen Mann. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Hope you had a lovely long weekend. It is Tuesday. I already called it Monday at least a couple times today, and I'm sure you will too. It is Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. Thanks for joining us. Coming up this hour on the show, we're going to go to Ottawa and check in with a reporter. But what happens next in the federal government's deal with Alberta for a new pipeline? Also, the UN votes tomorrow on whether to adopt a landmark opinion by the International Court of Justice. It says countries have a legal responsibility to meet climate obligations, so we're going to hear more on that. But up first, they captured their first ever Turnbull Cup in April, and now they're taking the Centennial Cup home to Niverville. We're going to hear from the president of the Niverville Nighthawks about their big win over the weekend. That's coming up here on Information Radio. But first up here at 6:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, at least 5 new businesses have opened in Osborne Village this year. 7 others are in the works. It's good news for an area that has seen declining foot traffic since the pandemic. Close to 20 businesses shut their doors in Osborne Village since 2024, but this year the number of openings outweighs the closings. We are going to hear from the head of the Osborne Village Biz coming up. Siblings separated in the 60s scoop have been reunited after spending decades apart. Winnipeggers Joe Lambert and Donna Morin hugged their sister Melody Roberts after she flew in from the U.S. this long weekend. The 3 are now in their 60s, and they grew up knowing nothing about each other. Joe Lambert says this has changed his life. We'll hear the story coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adiemi is in now with a look at your weather. Hey there, Abby.
Hi, Corey. We are seeing more like a cloud cover across the province this morning. Earlier, I was tracking this frost advisory, which was in effect for the Parkland, the Westman, and into the central regions, with overnight temperatures really nosediving. And I was just thinking about the gardeners that would want to leave some strawberries and some peppers outside, and they may not survive overnight. I hope you brought them in last night. But those advisories have ended for now. And if we look at conditions in Winnipeg, we're starting the day with 1 degree at the Forks, 3 at the airport, some overcast we will notice as we start the day. We'll see today's forecast bringing more like this cloud dominant day with a slim chance of a morning drizzle and scattered showers in the forecast here and there. All the while, we're going to see some winds really come from the north just to feel things a bit tight. We're tracking a high close to 9 degrees today, which sits really far below our typical seasonal for this time of the year, which is supposed to be around 20 degrees before we'll see some clear conditions tonight. Similar conditions we're seeing across the southern regions, 2 to 4 degrees. That's what we're tracking. Most of the regions we're seeing this gray stat, and then we'll notice a cool afternoon. Some drizzle we're tracking around the Gimli area, but down south we'll see highs around 10, 12 degrees, while up north we're already seeing some clearer conditions and crisp conditions. Sunshine we're tracking around the Tudula Lake into Churchill this morning. However, we're seeing temperatures around -8, -7s there. Lynn Lake we're looking at 2 degrees, and Thompson at 0. But for Winnipeg right now, depending on where you are in the city, you might be getting 1 degree and some areas getting 3 degrees. So be prepared for that. Temperatures close to 9 degrees today.
You know, over the weekend, Abby, we saw it was snowing Saturday morning, and then we were like, you know what, we're going to go on a family hike. So we did. We went out to Whittier Park. But as we were getting ready, my little guy, he was so psyched to go on a hike. We put on his jacket, his sweater. But as soon as we went to put on his mitts, he had this moral.
The look.
Yeah, this look like why? He was like, he leaned back. He was like, no.
Is this not over yet?
Yeah, exactly. It was like a moral opposition to putting on mitts this time of year. Like you could just tell he was so upset. He eventually got them on, and we had a good time. But
I
man,
don't blame him. I resisted putting on a sweater this weekend.
I know, it just feels wrong, doesn't it? Well, thank you very much, Abby.
You're welcome.
Sierra Sanders is in now with a look at your commute. Hey, Sierra.
Hi, Corey. I mean, I'm still in my turtlenecks, so if that's not a sign that it's still a little on the chillier side here as we approach past mid-May at this point, then
don't say it.
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but I'm with your little guy there as well.
Yeah.
Me putting on my big jacket still.
We're all crying while we put on our mitts.
Exactly, and our turtlenecks still.
Yeah.
Not too much going out there on your commute so far that I've heard about. The commuter line's been pretty quiet here as we kick off this hopefully shorter work week for some folks and maybe a short week for those out there. But just wanted to note a couple of construction closures here. So first one is on Plessis Road. So all southbound lanes of Plessis between Dugald Road and Provincial Trunk Highway 100 will be closed for street construction from today, May 19th, until September 4th. And they're asking you to use alternate routes there. So keep that in mind. That's a pretty big closure there and is running until September there. So Plessis Road, all southbound lanes between Dugald Road to Provincial Trunk Highway 100 will be closed. As well, Dufferin Avenue, the westbound median lane and all eastbound lanes of Dufferin between McGregor Street to Power Street will be closed for street construction from today, May 19th, until July 7th. Only westbound travel is going to be available there. So expect delays and use alternate routes if possible there. So a couple of construction reminders there to think about. But if there is a situation that gets in your way or something that pops up on your drive, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
Well, up first here on the show, the Centennial Cup is coming home to Niverville. The Niverville Nighthawks have earned the title as the best Junior A hockey team in Canada. The team took down the Summerside Western Capitals 4-1 in Prince Edward Island on Sunday. And yesterday, the guest host Chloe Friesen spoke with Clarence Braun. He is the president of the Niverville Nighthawks. And here's a clip from that conversation.
Good morning.
So take us into those final few seconds of the game. What was going through your head?
Well, even when you were just mentioning, the top junior A team in Canada, that's an incredible accomplishment on behalf of our entire organization. And the last few seconds of the game, of course, we were at 4-1, and we were where we'd be winning that game. But it's surreal. Like you don't plan it this way. You don't plan these things. When you start off with 160 teams at the beginning of the year, and you end up being the last two that are there, and you don't have a lot of time to think about other than just to enjoy the moment. And we really did enjoy the moment with about 150 of our fans that came out from Manitoba to be in PEI with us, and yeah, it's just really, really incredible.
This is it's a young team and it's a young program. The Nighthawks joined the MHL in 2022. What does a win only 4 years into a program mean?
Well, I think from the beginning we realized that we wanted to build a community-based team. So we're a not-for-profit organization, and we have 60-plus founders that each put in $10,000 that they were never going to get back again. And we said from the beginning, we're going to do this for the community, and our community has been so engaged. I mean, it means today in Niverville, the Nighthawks are everything. In the early, second year, we had some attendance issues. Things were a little slower. We hadn't really proven anything, and we're trying to build trust with the community, and we're not that large to start off with. But, the culmination of this weekend, makes a statement to the community that everything that we had wanted to do and their support of it has really, really enhanced Niverville and surrounding area. And so we're so grateful for our sponsors and our fans, and of course our hockey ops coaching staff did an incredible job. Yeah, we're only 4 years old, but we've got a hockey culture that we've started to build, and it's not only about these guys on the ice. I mean, you see them. I mean, it's 10 months. Just came to training camp yesterday. It's 10 months. So this is like a career for them in the sense that this is what they do. They don't have side jobs and that kind of thing. But they're more than hockey players. Each one of these kids has got the potentials and dreams to aspire to and bring change to the world that they live in. And so, developing their character and discipline and then just seeing them excel the way they have, it's just amazing.
Does this win open up more opportunity for the players?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have quite a few of our players are going to be signing intentions with universities and in Canada and NC Division 1 and 3 scholarship opportunities in the U.S. within the coming weeks. Some of the guys have been aware of all the opportunities, but they decided they were going to wait till the end of the playoffs before they signed anything. In our 4 years, we've had well over 20 players that have gone on to get scholarships at Division 1, 3, and Canadian universities and build their education as they pursue a hockey career. So it's been a crazy thing to see.
I know it's early, though it only happened last night, but are there any big plans for when the team returns to Niverville?
Yeah, there's going to be a big event tomorrow night at the CRRC on the open ice. The ice is out of the rink now, and we're having a fan appreciation, community appreciation night for the Nighthawks. It's a free event. Begins at 6 o'clock. We're going to have a short program. And then we're going to have just an opportunity for our fans and for the community to engage with the players, coaches, anybody that they like, get autographs on any of their jerseys or equipment. And, of course, for 8 of these players, this is the last game they played last night for the Nighthawks. As they're 20 years old, they've aged out, and they're going to be moving on.
Do you know if any of them have gotten any sleep? Like, how will they be doing tomorrow night?
Well, as the president, I'm a young 70 years old, but it wasn't in my head to be up to 4 o'clock in the morning. So my wife and I left the party at about 12:15.
Okay,
and,
not bad.
Went back to our Airbnb, and of course I was, answering media calls and whatever. And at about 2 o'clock, another group rolled in, but I found out this morning they didn't fall asleep till 4:30. And I would imagine that back at the hotel, there wasn't much sleep among the players. I would imagine we're all getting on the plane today back to Winnipeg, and there'll be some tired bodies.
It'll be a quiet ride, I assume.
Yeah.
Clarence, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and celebrating with us. And I'm sure we'll hear more from you and the whole team in the coming days.
Yes, and just so you know, we really appreciate the attention given to this event on behalf of CBC, and thank you so much.
That was guest host Chloe Friesen speaking with the president of the Niverville Nighthawks, Clarence Barron, after his team won the Centennial Cup. And a reminder, that community celebration is tonight at the Niverville CRRC. It runs from 6 to 10 p.m. Also a reminder that coming up next Thursday, we will be live in Niverville. It just so happens. It wasn't just because of this win. We plan to be there anyways because it is Manitoba's fastest growing town. So we want to go there and hear why and why people are moving there. So we're going to talk more about that. We're going to be at the Community General Store next Thursday morning. So come on down if you're in the Niverville area. We'd love to have you by. Well, up next here on the show, we're going to pivot here to talk a little bit about what's happening internationally. There could soon be added pressure on countries to meet their climate obligations. An International Court of Justice opinion says they have a legal responsibility to do so. And tomorrow, the United Nations General Assembly will vote on a resolution that would back it up. And joining me now to explain is Charlie Hatt, Climate Program Director at EcoJustice. Good morning.
Morning.
So set the scene for us here. So what was the significance of this opinion from the International Court of Justice?
It was a seminal opinion delivered last summer. It was a unanimous opinion of the court, the International Court of Justice being the world's highest court. And it took us from an era where states would talk about climate ambition and making voluntary pledges and doing their best into an era where the court says there are legal obligations that states have to act on climate and to not do things that make the climate crisis worse. And those things are, fossil fuel production, increasing oil and gas production, subsidizing with public money the consumption of fossil fuels or increased production or export of them. So it's a sea change in terms of how we understand international law as it respects climate change. And it's filtering in to domestic legal systems. Here in Canada, we've seen our courts refer to the ICJ decision. That will only continue because there are cases brought against the federal government, against provincial governments, including one brought by my organization that's been going on for a number of years, EcoJustice. We're Canada's largest national environmental law charity. And we hope that this decision will help clarify that, states not only have legal obligations internationally, but at home, too, to their own citizens under human rights law.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned there that, when there's opinions like this, it does kind of trickle into national court systems. But what would passing this resolution add in terms of climate governance overall?
Well, the resolution would give a political boost, I would say, to the ICJ's decision. So the resolution is brought by Vanuatu, a small Pacific island nation that is being inundated by sea level rise. They're very threatened by climate change. They might even, lose their national territory. So they spearheaded the effort to get the case before the International Court of Justice in the first place. Countries showed up, Canada included, and made arguments this way or that way. The court bought some of them and didn't buy others. Canada had some of its arguments rejected. They were trying to argue for narrower obligations, if any, and also, potentially surprisingly to listeners, they argued that international human rights law should not be relevant to thinking about states' climate action. In any event, the court made its decision. So now we're at a position where parties have argued it out, the court's decision is there, and this resolution would welcome and recognize the court decision in the political body of the UN, the General Assembly. So Canada, in voting in favor, if they do, they would signal that they both recognize and respect the court's ruling, the science that underlies it, and that they respect what's called the rule of law. The idea that when a court renders its decision, no one person, no one country is above it. They have to abide by it, respect it. We all have to play by a common set of rules. And our federal government and our current prime minister has talked about the importance of the rule of law, and this is a great opportunity to demonstrate respect for it.
So we don't know yet, actually, if Canada plans to vote for the resolution or not.
I have not seen one way or the other yet.
Okay. And so, the vote to adopt the resolution, as we know, may not be unanimous. So how would a split vote affect the resolution's strength at all? Of course, some countries may see the rule of law and just follow it, but is that going to be the case across the board?
Well, I think for some countries you can predict that they may well vote against. The U.S., under Trump is essentially something of a petro-state, so they may be voting against it. But, for a country like Canada, which is largely a reliable, responsible actor internationally, and we've played a constructive role at times on climate politics, this is a good opportunity, like I said, to demonstrate respect for the rule of law, because, Canada can talk the talk, but we need to be able to walk the walk too. So we've seen in recent weeks the federal government make a number of announcements, roll out new proposals, agreements that would lead to large increases in oil and gas production and potentially new public subsidies for that as well. And we know what that'll do to the climate. It'll make the climate crisis worse, significantly worse, in terms of the heat waves and floods and wildfires, droughts and so forth. It's an opportunity for Canada to start, walking that path of a different way forward. And when we've seen recently with Trump's war in Iran affecting the price internationally of oil and gas, LNG in particular, what we've seen is the Asian countries and the European countries that would be importing the fuels that we are apparently meaning to export from new fossil fuel mega projects, they're sprinting away from that. They don't want the price volatility. They don't want the reliance on fuels that are subject to energy shocks every couple of years, it seems, and opting for clean, renewable technology, solar, wind, battery storage. that they can generate from within their own borders and have true energy security. So that's the way that the global energy system is going. Canada can align itself with that, or we can double down on a fossil fuel export model of the past. And this is a great opportunity to do the former.
Well, Charlie, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Charlie Hatt is the Climate Program Director at EcoJustice. We reached him in Toronto. Still to come here on the show, the latest inflation numbers are set to be released this morning. So we're going to hear what people are expecting to see in those numbers. That's coming up in your business report after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is cool again. Another damp, cloudy, breezy day. Right now, we're at 3 in Winnipeg. We may see some showers. That wind north 20 gusting to 40 and a high of just 9 today. We do get closer to warming up to normal by tomorrow. A 60s scoop survivor raised in the U.S. has reunited with her family after knowing nothing about them for decades. Melody Roberts hugged 2 of her surviving siblings after landing in Winnipeg over the long weekend. The 66-year-old from Eugene, Oregon, says she only learned they existed when an outreach worker tracked her down, asking if she wanted to meet them.
It was shocking. I was kind of taken back by it. I had mixed emotions about it, but I was more than happy to get to know them and meet them. It feels great. I mean, I'm very, very glad that I met my sister and brothers.
More than 20,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families in the 60s Scoop. The 60s Scoop Manitoba Council says more supports are needed to help survivors like Melody come back home. At least 5 new businesses have opened in Osborne Village this year, and 7 others are in the works. It's good news for an area that has seen declining foot traffic since the pandemic. Close to 20 businesses have shut their doors in the village since 2024. This year, the number of openings outweighs the closings. Zora Gervais is the executive director of the Osborne Village Biz.
It's an unusual shift for Osborne in that we're having a lot of investment over this fairly short time frame, but it speaks to the vibrancy of the neighborhood and people want to be here.
Gervais says more than 350 residential units have been built. Close to 500 are either being developed or are under construction. U.S. liquor is back on Manitoba shelves at a discount price. The province removed U.S. booze from liquor stores last year as part of retaliatory moves against American tariffs. Now the province is offering a 30% discount on leftover inventory. An American agriculture policy expert says the U.S. liquor industry has lost hundreds of millions of dollars from the ban. Andrew Mohammed says the impact may be felt for years to come.
The way to think about it is not just sort of this one-time loss, but this sort of loss repeated over the next decade or so as we sort of pay some price or consequence for losing a share of the Canadian market.
The province says its positioning on selling U.S. liquor has not changed. Proceeds from the U.S. liquor sold in this sale will go to Manitoba charities. Activists say 11 Canadians have been detained by Israel's Navy, picked up in the waters off Cyprus as part of a flotilla trying to get to Gaza. More than 300 other people were also taken into custody. The activists say their mission is to draw attention to the living conditions of Palestinians in Gaza. Israel says the detainees will be deported as soon as possible. Canada's Defence Minister David McGuinty will be making an announcement today at the Saskatchewan base of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. His visit comes amid speculation about the future of the Aerial Acrobatic Squadron. The Snowbirds have performed at thousands of air shows since 1971. McGuinty has said the aircraft fleet is approaching the end of its life, and air demonstrations can continue only as long as planes are safe. The federal government has apparently been looking for replacement options, but it's not clear how long the Snowbirds can continue to perform. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Now, to Buffalo, New York.
Over the line comes Newhook. Shooting. Scores! Alex Newhook! Olé! 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 And Montreal is going to play Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final.
The Montreal Canadiens beating the Buffalo Sabres in sudden death overtime last night to win a decisive Game 7 in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Final score 3-2. Montreal, as he said, now goes on to play Carolina in the semifinals and in the Professional Women's Hockey League. The Ottawa Charge stave off elimination, beating Montreal Victoire 2-1 in Game 3 of the Walter Cup final. Montreal leads the series 2-1. Game 4 goes tomorrow in Ottawa. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adiemi is in with a look at your regional forecast. Hello.
Yeah, Corey, we're waking up to more like a cool spring pattern today. Cloudy skies dominating the southern part of the province. While if you look at conditions up north, we're seeing more like breaks of sunshine and making its presence there, and some frost concerns overnight in some regions, spreading from the Westman all the way into the central regions, but that has ended for now. Looking at conditions in Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're seeing cloudy and chilly start. Temperatures sitting between 1 degree at the Forks and 3 at the airport. Light breeze and overcast skies will be keeping things really feeling kind of seasonal this time of the year. There's a slim chance of morning drizzle in the forecast, and maybe a few afternoon showers might come, but overall it's going to stay mostly cloudy today. The daytime high is expected to reach 9 degrees today, well below the normal of 20 for mid-May. Across the southern regions, similar story: gray skies, cool air. The Pembina Valley region from Morden, tracking it into Winkler through Port Perry, we're seeing temperatures sitting near 4 degrees right now under mostly cloudy conditions, with daytime highs near 12 degrees. Brandon areas looking at conditions around 2 at this time. It's cloudy there. You get to reach 12 later in the day. Dauphin and the rest of the regions in the Parkland area, we're seeing 2 degrees also there with overcast conditions, highs near 11 degrees. In the Interlake region, good morning Gimli, you're slightly milder. We're looking at 3 degrees there. There are light drizzles spotted here and there. Your highs will be around 10 degrees later. Then we track it into the central part of the province and all the way up north, where we're seeing more like varied conditions there, but brighter conditions. In the Power Flame Flow, the skies are partly cloudy right now, sitting around -3. The day improves to milder conditions. We'll see highs climb to 14 degrees. Norway House is clear around -4, with sunshine pushing temperatures to about 12 degrees later. And then Thompson towards Split Lake, mostly cloudy now, near 0, reaching a high of 11 later. In the Lynn Lake area, we're seeing cloudy skies around 2 degrees right now. Daytime high climbs to 13 later. While for Gillam, we're seeing mostly cloudy and cooler temperatures, -6 there, warming up to 5 degrees later. Tudula Lake, some sunshine there, but you still remain the coldest spot in the province, -8 at this time. You warm to 6 degrees later. Then for Churchill and the York region, around -7, mostly cloudy, you only get to -2. So overall, the province carries still staying cool. The southern areas remain locked under cloudy conditions, but much below seasonal temperatures. While up north, we're seeing a mix of sun and clouds with slightly more variation. Some really bright skies we're tracking up north. For Winnipeg, it's cloudy right now, 3 degrees at the airport, slowly walking towards a high of 9 degrees before we see some clear skies, but it's going to be cold tonight again.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That is Abby Adiemi. And Sierra Sanders is in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. It has been pretty quiet on the commuter line so far this morning. Not hearing too much from the folks out there. So that to me sounds like your drive is going pretty smooth right now. But if that does change and there's a situation that pops up on your commute, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, Crystal Ramlakan is here now with your business report. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Corey.
So the next inflation numbers are set to be released this morning. So what are we expecting?
Well, this will be closely watched as the surge in oil prices from the conflict in the Middle East continues to drive up gas prices. So some economists expect inflation to rise to 3.1% for April from the 2.4% that we saw in March. So they believe this will be driven primarily by higher fuel costs and partly due to tax distortions. So this April is the first month in a year that energy prices won't be artificially lowered by the removal of the consumer carbon tax. And the removal of the federal fuel excise tax will only provide a small offset. And the impact of higher oil prices on energy costs, of course, are well known. So focus will also be on the extent to which energy prices have spread to broader inflation. So what else have energy prices sent up the prices of? So, it doesn't just affect energy and oil and gas, right? It also affects so many other areas of life.
And staying on energy, there is a warning that some oil inventories only have a few weeks worth left. So what other details do you have on that?
Yes, so the head of the International Energy Agency says some commercial oil inventories are rapidly depleting with the war in the Middle East and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So the agency says the release of strategic oil reserves has added 2.5 million barrels of oil per day to the market, but says these reserves are not endless. And it says the onset of the spring planting season and summer travel will drain inventories more quickly as demand for things like diesel, fertilizer, jet fuel, and gas increases. So before the U.S. and Israel launched attacks on Iran at the end of February, there was actually a major surplus in the oil markets and commercial inventories were very high. But of course, we know the situation has rapidly shifted due to the war. And last week, the IEA said global oil supply will fall short of total demand this year as the conflict continues to wreak havoc on the Middle East oil production. And the IEA had previously forecast a surplus this year, but oil inventories fell at a record pace in March and April.
And finally here, Elon Musk lost his case against OpenAI and its top executive. So what else can you tell us about that?
Yes, so this high-stakes trial really pitted billionaire against billionaires. And so a federal court in the U.S. dismissed claims filed against OpenAI and its top executives. So Musk accused them of betraying a shared vision to keep it a nonprofit dedicated to guiding the development of artificial intelligence for the good of humanity. And the world's richest man was a co-founder of OpenAI, which launched in 2015 and then went on to create ChatGPT. So after investing $30 million in its first years, Musk accused OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and his top deputy of shifting into a money-making mode behind his back. But the 9-person jury found that Musk waited too long to file his lawsuit and missed the statute of limitations deadline. But you know what? Neither side really emerged as too sympathetic in this case. Public opinion about artificial intelligence is at a low, with worries over job losses and even humanity's extinction. And online comments and signs outside of the courtroom rooted for neither side. And critics say the real losers are people whose lives are being upended by an AI industry controlled by a few out-of-touch billionaires who can't get along.
Thank you very much, Crystaline.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
That was Crystaline Ramlakan with your business news. 6:43 right now. We've got some music for you on this very Monday, like Tuesday. Canadian duo Whitehorse has released a brand new tune from Luke Doucette and Melissa McClelland. Here they are now with Pure Poetry on CBC Radio 1.
Shot in the dark. We're going down like a paper
That's White Horse with Pure Poetry. Well, coming up this next hour on Information Radio, the Gold Eyes home opener is tonight, and some baseball fans may be feeling like,
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with
well,
the
coming
crowd.
up this next hour, we're speaking to a rookie on the team that's already scored 2 home runs in the preseason, and he is originally from Canada, but he's kind of moving back up here from the States. So we're going to hear from him coming up after 7:30. Right now in Winnipeg at the Forks, we are sitting at 1. We are heading for a high today of 9. You can expect a little bit of rain and drizzle, about a 30% chance, and it is still going to be dipping down, though, overnight to just around 0, but it will get clearer and sunnier starting tomorrow. Tomorrow's high. Right now, forecast is 17. Well, up next here on the show, officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo are racing to control a deadly new Ebola outbreak. According to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, at least 100 people are believed to have died from the virus, and there are almost 500 suspected cases. The World Health Organization says the outbreak is now an international emergency, and Heather Kerr is the Democratic Republic of Congo country director for the International Rescue Committee. She spoke with As It Happens guest host Nora Young about how her concerns are on wider spread.
We're very worried about the outbreak spreading. As you know, it's already spread to Uganda, where there have been 2 cases. Its epicenter is in the province of Ituri, but there have already been cases in Beni in North Kivu, in Butembo in North Kivu, and also in the town of Goma, which has got a population of about 2 million people, 1 case confirmed. So, you can feel it's already spreading out of Ituri.
This is a rare strain of the Ebola virus. Can you tell our listeners how this strain is different?
It's rarer. I think there've only been 2 other outbreaks when this particular strain has been at the bottom of it. Much more common is Ebola Zaire, which was the strain in the last big outbreak here in 2018 to 2020. So I think that's one of the reasons why it took longer to detect it, because people were thinking it would be, if it was Ebola, it would be Ebola Zaire, but it actually turned out to be this particular strain, Bundibugyo.
And from what I understand, there are no authorized vaccines or treatments for this variant. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. They haven't developed any. I'm sure they're trying to work on them pretty rapidly, but they will try and use some of the treatments that they might use for Ebola Zaire. But otherwise, I imagine they'll be just trying to keep the patients comfortable. Ebola can be incredibly painful, so maybe giving them painkillers, but there are no official treatments or vaccines for this particular strain.
According to the Africa CDC, there were 50 deaths recorded by the time health authorities were first alerted to the outbreak. What do you make of that response time?
Well, obviously, it's very poor. I mean, this outbreak happened the main center of it is a mining town called Mongwalu in Ituri, and it's quite remote. So the news didn't get out nearly as fast as it should have done. And people who were presenting in health centers, people weren't recognizing that it was Ebola, which is tragic because people have health workers have been trained on the signs of Ebola in the past, and you would hope that they would have thought more that it was Ebola. But when they sent it for testing, it came back as negative because they weren't testing for the right strain.
Heather Kerr is the Democratic Republic of Congo country director for the International Rescue Committee. She was in Kinshasa. Time now is 6:51. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. in for Marcy Marcusa. And next up here on the show, it's being called a landmark deal. We're talking about last week's energy agreement signed by Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. Now, Alberta will increase what it pays for industrial carbon emissions, and in exchange, it could get a pipeline to transport bitumen from the province's oil sands to the sea. But the agreement raises questions about cooperation with British Columbia and Indigenous populations, and it undermines Canada's green commitment. So for a closer look, we've reached Alex Bollingal. He is Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. We reached him in Ottawa this morning. Hello.
Hey, good morning.
So does Friday's announcement mean that Canada is getting a new pipeline then?
Not necessarily, but it's a step in that direction, I think, is basically the bottom line. They're calling it an implementation agreement. It sets out kind of the conditions that need to be met on a carbon capture project in Alberta, on the industrial carbon price levels in Alberta going forward. And if kind of all those things line up as agreed to, the federal government will basically help fast-track the approval of this pipeline with a shared goal to potentially clear the way for construction as early as September 2027. So that's basically the bottom line. So maybe definitely a step in that direction, but a lot has to happen between now and then to kind of make the stars align on that.
So how is the oil and gas industry reacting to this?
They, it's definitely another concession from the federal government to the fossil fuel sector. So in that sense, it's kind of a policy win for them. On the industrial carbon price, the Trudeau era system was supposed to get to $170 per ton of emissions by 2030. Alberta under that system was allowed to kind of water it down, so it was effectively much lower than it's supposed to be. Alberta's now agreed to raise that, but they have way longer to do so. So instead of 170 by 2030, they never have to get to 170. And by 2040, they have to have an effective level of minimum 110. They're hoping for 130. So it's a weaker system overall, but Alberta's kind of agreed to play ball with a weaker system. And that is sort of, compared to what was previously there, a win for the fossil fuel sector in a sense. Although there were some people in the industry, I'm thinking of like the head of Cenovus, a major oil sands company, who wanted the system completely gone. Saying it's uncompetitive, it's hurting industry at a time when there's economic strain and trade turmoil and all that. So there are people who kind of wanted them to go further, but it definitely is a concession to the sector.
And I imagine there's no shortage of criticisms of this deal as well. What are the main ones?
The main ones, are coming from environmentalists and climate activists who say, this is kind of the final dismantlement of serious climate policy at the national level. And they point to the succession of things that the Carney government has done since he became prime minister last year, canceling the consumer carbon price, canceling an emissions cap for the oil and gas sector, canceling sales mandates for zero emission vehicles, now weakening the industrial carbon price in Alberta, and as Carney said Friday, allowing other provinces to sign on to this weaker industrial carbon price. So the criticism is that piece by piece they've weakened climate action at the federal level, and basically Canada is falling out of the global struggle to reduce emissions and fight climate change, essentially, and they see this as kind of an abdication of Canada's role in that fight.
So then what exactly is Carney's vision for reaching net zero emissions by 2050?
Well, a big part of it is, they argue that, okay, the industrial carbon price on paper is weaker, but Alberta's agreed to play ball and actually strengthen it instead of weakening it inside their province. So they say that's a climate win, is what the government's argument. They also say net zero by 2050. They want to build out the electricity grid, and they talked about this a lot last week. Build more renewable energy, some natural gas, but mostly kind of clean power. And if the grid gets big enough, they can electrify more transportation. They can displace fossil fuels for home heating and buildings. They can use more electricity for heavy industry, which is a big source of emissions. And that in building out over the longer term, a larger and clean electricity grid, Canada's emissions levels can go down. So it's almost like build it and they will drop. essentially is a big part of their net zero plan at the moment.
So July 1st is the next major deadline in this process. So what happens then?
So that is the date when Alberta wants to submit to the federal government its proposal for this pipeline. The new pipeline that they want, 1 million barrels a day through BC to the Pacific coast. They're going to submit that by then, but there are a lot of outstanding questions. The exact route, huge one is if the private sector is going to be involved, if they're going to be able to find a private sector, like a private company to build this thing and to operate this thing, or at least get involved in some significant capacity. There's opposition on the BC coast from Indigenous, First Nations. The coastal First Nations say this is never going to happen because it would require lifting restrictions on oil tanker traffic off the coast there. They're hugely opposed to it. The BC government isn't on board with this. And, in the past we've seen, protest movements spiral out over pipeline issues like the Wet'suwet'en coastal GasLink pipeline in 2020. Court challenges potentially. There are a lot of things that question marks around this and things that need to happen before, the green light becomes truly a green light on this.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Alex.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Alex Ballingal is the Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. We reached him in Ottawa. Still to come this next hour here on Information Radio, a bike bus is gaining momentum with students and parents at a Winnipeg school. We're going to hear from Jim Agapito, who actually went along for a ride on this bike bus. That's coming up after 7 o'clock. But right now, though, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. A 60 Scoop survivor raised in the U.S. has reunited with her family after knowing nothing about them for decades. Melody Roberts hugged two of her siblings after landing in Winnipeg over the long weekend. She says she had mixed emotions, but is now very glad she's met her sister and brothers. And we're going to hear from an American agriculture policy expert who says banning U.S. liquor from Canadian shelves has cost the industry millions. That's coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. That's Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. 1 degree right now at the Forks, heading for a high today of 9 with a chance of drizzle or rain. I'm Corey Funk, in from Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
On the Current.
You have a nice long weekend, get outside, enjoy the nice weather. When you came back in, did you check yourself for ticks? Tick season is here. We'll talk about what you need to look out for and how a new tick that causes an allergy to red meat and dairy in parts of the U.S. is spreading to Canada. Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Helen Mann. The number of deaths linked to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is rising rapidly. The World Health Organization says there are now 130 suspected deaths and 500 presumed cases of the virus. Health officials warn those numbers will climb because the virus is now spreading to densely populated cities. Crystal Gumansing has more.
It was just 2 days ago the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, declared the Ebola outbreak a public health threat of international concern. Today, more worry.
I'm deeply concerned about the scale and the speed of the epidemic.
The Bundibugyo variant of the virus first appeared in Ituri province in the Democratic Republic of Congo. After a case was detected in neighboring Uganda, Rwanda shut its borders with the DRC, hoping to stop infected people from entering the country.
There are lots of implications.
Dr. Tom Friedman is a former director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control.
This is a severe and potentially devastating outbreak, and until the outbreak is over in Africa, it will not be all clear everywhere.
An American who tested positive is now receiving care in Germany. 6 others who were also exposed are expected to be moved to Europe for care. There is, however, no vaccine for this strain of Ebola. Experts say it's only been seen 3 other times. Its uniqueness, one of the reasons tests didn't pick it up right away. The WHO's Director General is urging global cooperation.
There are many other measures countries, of course, can take to stop the spread of this virus and save lives.
The virus, which takes about 21 days to develop, is spread by direct contact with bodily fluids. Officials say that means the risk to the general population is low if precautions are taken. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
A community in San Diego is looking for answers this morning after 3 people were shot and killed at a mosque. Police Chief Scott Wall.
We're actively investigating this as a hate crime. Some of that is going to have to take more time to develop further to see where that information is coming from. But yes, it's being investigated as a hate crime at this point. There was definitely hate rhetoric that was involved.
Wall says 2 teenage shooters opened fire outside the Islamic Center of San Diego. He says they were fought off by a security guard and staff. Officials say both suspects were later found dead from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. The mother of one of the suspects had called police before the shooting, saying her son had allegedly taken several weapons from their home. The future of the controversial Churchill Falls hydroelectric station is back in the spotlight today. A review of a new memorandum of understanding between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is to be released. It could lead to a financial windfall for Newfoundland and Labrador. As Julia Israel reports, critics of the original 1969 energy deal say it was heavily weighted in Quebec's favour.
It's clearly always been and should always be about the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and making sure we get the best deal possible.
Premier Tony Wakeham talking about a new energy deal for the Churchill Falls Power Station in Labrador. Wakeham's criticism of the tentative agreement brought by the former Liberal government was a key part of his election campaign last fall. The original Churchill Falls deal has been mired in controversy and resentment since 1969. Newfoundland and Labrador sells the vast majority of its produced hydro energy to Quebec for peanuts. That is set to continue until 2041. But in 2024, that contract was performatively ripped up.
And we are endeavoring
by 2 premiers no longer in the picture. An independent review committee has since focused on what the latest memorandum of understanding means for Newfoundland and Labrador. Opposition energy critic Fred Hutton says it could change everything.
This is about, the future of the province in terms of a monumental shift in the economy here, and there's been nothing like it ever.
There's Quebec, desperate for electricity, with demand expected to double by 2050. And Ottawa, also aiming to double the country's electricity output by that same target. Last week, Mark Carney said in French,
Churchill Falls.
The federal government could potentially provide a complement of solutions. Newfoundland and Labrador is desperate to fill its fiscal sinkhole with the billions promised in this agreement, while also determined not to let mistakes be repeated. Julia Israel, CBC News, St. John's.
The son of the founder of the Mango Fashion Group is in police custody, being questioned about his father's death. Isak Andek died when he fell off a cliff during a family hike near Barcelona in December 2024. Forbes says he was worth $4.5 billion US at the time of his death. His son Jonathan is now under arrest, and local media report police are looking into a possible homicide. U.S. President Donald Trump says he is calling off a planned attack on Iran. He says the clock was ticking, but negotiations are now showing promise. Trump is changing his tune after hearing from the leaders of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The CBC's Cameron McIntosh has the latest from Jerusalem.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Members of his cabinet applauding. U.S. President Donald Trump last night said today was going to be the day.
We were getting ready to do a very major attack.
Then said leaders of 3 Gulf states convinced him to give negotiations one last chance.
I've put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever.
Trump says an Iranian proposal mediated by Pakistan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for the U.S. lifting sanctions and unfreezing assets shows promise, while also suggesting Iran is willing to negotiate over its enriched uranium.
And if we can do that where there's no nuclear weapon going into the hands of Iran, I think, and if they're satisfied, we will be probably satisfied also.
The entire Middle East was nervously bracing as Trump's war threats grew louder. But for Trump, the war is also unpopular at home. These negotiations, a possible off-ramp.
He still feels that he needs additional threats and additional military action
Ali Vaez is an analyst with International Crisis Group.
That there is no silver bullet here that would resolve all of his problems with Iran and would make the Iranians to capitulate. And that is why I think he has backed off.
At least for now, the president insisting force is still on the table. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Activists say 11 Canadians have been detained by Israel's Navy. They were picked up in the waters off Cyprus as part of a flotilla trying to get to Gaza. More than 300 other people were also taken into custody. The activists say their mission is to draw attention to the living conditions of Palestinians in Gaza. Israel says the detainees will be deported as soon as possible. Authorities in India are warning that country is in the grips of an intense heat wave. The mercury has already reached 44 degrees Celsius, and in some places it is expected to rise. Neha Punya is in New Delhi with more on how the people there are coping.
In India's capital, residents say stepping outside feels like entering a furnace. The heat is relentless, with nighttime temperatures also remaining over 30 degrees in many cities. Government guidelines advise people to stay indoors after noon to limit heat stress. But for Shoshti Chandradas, a security guard who spends all day outdoors, that is not an option.
There's no way I can stay cool here. I try to sit under a tree, but the most difficult time begins after 11 in the morning.
About 3/4 of India's workforce is engaged in heat-exposed labour. Robati Sardar is a professional housekeeper commuting from house to house for her work.
The heat is excruciating. When I'm returning home from work, a hot wind is constantly blowing. The heat is unbearable until about 5:30 p.m.
The heat is not new for India, but summers are getting hotter and more intense each year, which experts attribute to climate change. So far today, the planet's hottest 100 cities are all in one country, India. Most of these cities are in the north, where temperatures are at several degrees above normal. A recent Oxford University study warns that climate change will expose billions of Indians to dangerously hot conditions by 2050. But heat is already pushing the very limits of survival every day. Neha Punya for CBC News, New Delhi.
Canada's Defence Minister David McGuinty will be making an announcement shortly at the home base of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. His visit comes amid speculation about the future of the Aerial Acrobatic Squadron. Since 1971, the Snowbirds have performed at thousands of air shows. McGuinty has said the aircraft fleet is approaching the end of its life, and air demonstrations can continue only as long as the planes are safe. The federal government has apparently been looking for replacement options, but it's not clear how long the Snowbirds can perform. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Helen Mann. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. It's Tuesday, May 19th. Certainly feels like a Monday, though. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. And coming up this hour on the show, we continue our series on youth unemployment. We explore how other provinces are changing their hiring practices to prevent employers from ghosting applicants. So we're going to head to Ontario, which has a new law that forces employers to disclose things like if they're using AI in the hiring process, and tells them that they have to tell people who apply whether they have made it through the process or not. Spoiler alert, though, our guest says it's not going as well as you'd think. Also, this half hour on the show, baseball is back in Winnipeg. So tonight, the Gold Eyes home opener is happening. And later on, we're going to be speaking to one of the rookies on the team. Also coming up, it's part commute, part social ride. We're going to hear how students cycling to school is creating a community and promoting active transit in one part of the city with something called a bike bus. So stay tuned for that. Right now, though, 7:11, let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, siblings separated in the 60s scoop have been reunited after spending decades apart. Winnipeggers Joe Lambert and Donna Moran hugged their sister Melody Roberts after she flew in from the U.S. over the long weekend. The three are in their 60s. They grew up knowing nothing about each other. Joe Lambert only learned about the 60s scoop after an outreach worker told him he may be a survivor. He says it's changed his life. We're going to hear from him coming up. And at least 5 new businesses have opened in Osborne Village this year. 7 others are in the works. Close to 20 businesses have shut their doors in the village since 2024, and this year the number of openings outweighs the closings. We're going to hear from the owner of one of the new businesses in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
You know, Osborne Village was the first place I lived in when I moved out from my parents' place. I lived in the Roslyn.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, the big red building.
Yeah, it's historic, isn't it?
Historic, yeah. And it's amazing how much Osborne Village has changed over the last, well, it's kind of crazy to say, but like, I guess it's been about 16, 17 years. The business is open and closed. So, it is kind of a bit of a cycle through there. So
and it always was like the place to be.
Yeah, totally. When I moved there, it was like Osborne Village. It's good, but then you've seen the ebbs and flows since then. So it's nice to hear that people are saying it's on the uptick. So great. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi is in with a look at your weather. Hey there.
Corey, I'm just thinking about the people that left their plants outside overnight because of those frosty conditions we had in the Westman region, the Parkland, and even into the central regions. We might not really get the warnings or the alerts in this part of the province, but it was a pretty chilly one overnight with temperatures dropping close to zero and some areas even seeing below zero. But this morning, it's more like a quiet spring day, cloudy conditions in the southern regions, where we're seeing clearer conditions up north as temperatures down south hover around 1 to 3 degrees to start the morning. Here in Winnipeg, we're seeing 1 at the Forks, 3 at the airports, cloudy with windy northern conditions. We're expecting a slim chance of morning drizzle and afternoon showers today with a high reaching 9 degrees before we see some clear conditions tonight. We get to zero again tonight, so you don't want to bring those plants out yet. Maybe from tomorrow you can start leaving them outside. That's when we'll start crossing over close into the 20s as we'll get to see like overnight temperatures around 10 degrees and daytime highs will be in the 20s. Then you can leave the plants out. But across the south for now, it's more like a quiet and cool spring day. We're seeing temperatures holding steady around 3 degrees. Highs would be basically around 9 to 12 degrees in the southern part of the province. While up north, we are seeing some sunshine already around Thompson, around Tuduli Lake, Flin Flon, La Pas. We're seeing temperatures around 6 degrees there right now. Winnipeg, we are currently heading to a high of 9 later.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's happening with the commute?
It's been pretty lonely there on the CBC commuter line. Haven't received any calls, but to me that sounds like things are moving pretty smoothly out there on your Tuesday morning drive as we kick off this week for most people. Maybe some people worked yesterday. I know there were some people here around the newsroom that were working yesterday. So maybe it's a short week. Maybe you're hitting your actual Tuesday. Whatever it is for you, things are looking pretty good. But just wanted to note some construction for some people. Plessis Road, all southbound lanes between Duggold Road and Provincial Truck Highway 100 will be closed for street construction from today until September 4th. So they're asking you to please use alternate routes there. So that's a pretty big closure to keep in mind. As well, a closure on Dufferin Avenue, the westbound median lane, and all eastbound lanes between McGregor Street to Power Street will be closed for street construction from today, May 19th, until July 7th, and only westbound travel will be available there. So expect delays and use alternate routes there. So there's some things to keep an eye out, but so far your drive is looking pretty good. But if that does change and there is something that pops up, give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, up next here on the show, some students at Sage Creek School start and end their Wednesdays on 2 wheels. And if you live in the area, you may have seen the, quote, bike bus winding its way through your streets with dozens of kids cycling along together in a cluster. And CBC's Jim Agapito hopped on his bike and joined the crowd.
When you're biking past a hazard or something on the ground, you make a big circle and you yell, pothole! Try it. Pothole! One more time. Pothole! Pothole! Excellent. Are we ready to go? Yeah! Well, my name is Amanda Lake. I teach grade 2 at Sage Creek School, and I'm the coordinator of the bike bus. Bike bus is just like a regular school bus where everybody drives all together to school, except everybody's on bike. So the bus driver, that's me, leads a group of kids along a predefined route. We have a couple stops where people jump on the bus with us, and everybody bikes to school all safely together.
Why did you want to bring this idea to your community and school?
I'm super passionate about active transportation. I cycle year-round, even in our Winnipeg winters. One of our multi-year strategic plan goals for Louis-Riel School Division is promoting active transportation. So I thought it would be a great addition. There's lots of schools that do this already, and lots of people around the world who are doing it. So I thought it would be a great addition to our community.
My name is Lily Annabelle Spooner. I'm in grade 6.
What's the best part about riding the bike bus to school and going home?
I really like the enjoyment of going out in, I guess, the fresh air, being able to just let loose and go have a fun bike ride.
How is it different than riding in this big group than just riding on your own?
Oh, when you're riding by yourself, I guess it can get a bit lonely, but then when you're with so many other people, it feels like you're actually a part of something instead of just being solo.
Connor Jonathan McCurry.
What grade are you in?
Grade 3.
So tell me about the fun that you have on this bike bus.
It's super fun because I have a bunch of my friends and a lot of people in my class.
What's it like when you're riding?
It feels super crazy how there's about 30 people biking on the road on a bike. I'd say it's super fun, and if your friends join, it's even funner.
My name is Megan First.
And Megan, I understand that you are a parent, correct?
I am.
I imagine that your child was on this ride, correct?
Yes, I had 2 of them on the ride. I love that my kids get to be part of this community. Sage Creek does a fantastic job of getting the kids outside, introducing them to the outdoors, and getting them to love nature.
And how's their mood improving?
I wake them up in the morning and they're always grumpy and groggy, as normal kids are. And then on the days I always yell, bike bus! And they hop out of bed and they're ready probably at least 10-15 minutes quicker than normal. Last week it was snowing when we started in the morning, and we still had about 30 kids come out, which just shows you the eagerness and the backing that the school has in the community. It's a great event. All schools should be doing it.
How do you ensure that something like this is safe?
So we do have a minimum ratio that we have to meet in order for safety between adults and kids. I train all of our staff that are participating with us, and a couple of parents as well, on the safety rules that we need so that we can make sure that we're corking the roads, that cars aren't getting in the way of our bike bus. We give kids safety spiels before we set out every time on our rides from each stop, and we're making sure that kids are following the rules, and if they're not, then we have to think of other alternatives for them for the bike bus. So we see when kids show up using active transportation getting to school, they're ready to learn, they're active, they're moving more, and so their brains are more ready and their bodies are more ready, and they're just happier all around.
Does that make your job easier as a teacher then?
It really does, yeah.
Do you think programs like this should grow at Winnipeg schools?
I would love to see every school doing a bike bus. It takes a lot of work and some dedicated people to put it all together, but I think the benefits of kids getting outside more, getting active, and being more ready to learn when they get to school is unbeatable.
If there are other students in Winnipeg that maybe want to join this bike bus or want their school to have one, what would you tell them to encourage them to be a part of it?
I'd say it's a lot of fun, and it kind of teaches you how to be more independent than what you already are, and it just helps a lot of people feel comfortable in big groups as well.
That was CBC's Jim Agapito at Sage Creek School in Winnipeg. Their bike bus program runs every Wednesday until the end of the school year, and we couldn't help ourselves. This is Queen and Bicycle Race on CBC Radio 1.
I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like. You say black, I say white. You say bar, I say bite. You say shark, I say him. And Jaws was never my scene, and I don't like Star Wars. You say rose, I say Royce. You say, God, give me a choice. Say, Lord. I say, Christ, I don't believe in Peter Pan, Frankenstein, or Superman. All I wanna do is bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike. I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. Races are coming your way. So forget all your duties, oh yeah. Red bottom girls, they'll be riding today. So look out for those beauties, oh yeah. On your marks, get set, go! Kane. You say John, I say Wayne. Hot dog, I say cooler man. I don't want to be the president of America. You say smile, I say cheese. Cartier, I say please. Income tax, I say Jesus. I don't want to be a candidate for Vietnam or Watergate. 'Cause all I want to do is bicycle, yeah, bicycle, yeah, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle, bicycle. Come on, bicycle. I want to ride my bicycle. To ride my bike, I want to ride my bicycle. I want to ride it where I like.
That's Queen and Bicycle Race. That goes out to everyone out there this morning bundling up to take their bikes to school or to work. And of course, all those kids out there taking those bikes on the bike bus in the Sage Creek area. Shout out to them as well this morning. Well, coming up later this hour on the show, our series, The Young and the Jobless, Gen Z job hunters keep getting ghosted.
They just don't really care to try and reach out and be like, hey, we're not really going to hire you. I'd rather get a rejection than just like not get anything.
Well, coming up, we're going to hear from an expert who will explain the new law in Ontario that prevents this from happening, or at least it's supposed to. So that's coming up here on Information Radio. Right now, though, Scott Reguer joins us with some morning sports.
Good morning, Corey.
Good morning. There's been a lot of sports that went on over the weekend. So it didn't come easily, but the Montreal Canadiens are through to the NHL's Final Four.
They are, after beating the Sabres in overtime of Game 7 last night.
Carrier ahead. Over the line comes Newhook. Shooting. Scores! Alex Newhook! Ole! Ole! Ole!
Great call by Chris Cuthbert there. Alex Newhook wasn't the only Habs hero last night, Corey. Goalie Jakub Dobiš made 37 saves, including some huge ones in overtime. And he did it while listening to Sabres fans mockingly chant his name. The Buffalo faithful, very aware that Dobiš gave up 6 goals in the previous game and got yanked early. And Dobiš says hearing his name chanted that way last night just gave him fuel.
Their fans like to chant my name, so I like that too. Thank you. Thanks for that. That was giving me fire because I like that. I like when you're the villain, you're in this situation. So it's an unbelievable feeling. I wish you guys could feel how it's a relief, and it's awesome.
Dobiš says he likes being the villain. He has been binging Game of Thrones throughout these playoffs, so he'll hope to make like King Joffrey again on Thursday, Corey, when the Habs start the Eastern Final against Carolina.
That's impressive. And actually, the Habs aren't the only Montreal team with championship aspirations who were playing last night.
Right. So were the Montreal Victoire. All they had to do, Corey, if they were going to win their first PWHL championship, was beat the Charge in Ottawa in front of a playoff record crowd of about 17,000. Things looked to be going to overtime for a third game in a row when Ottawa's Rebecca Leslie scored with less than a minute to play. The winning tally couldn't have come from a more fitting player. Leslie grew up in the nation's capital.
It's such an honor to play for my hometown, to see, a record-breaking crowd. Obviously, growing up in Ottawa, I've always known that it's a hockey community, but to see the crowd come out every game, whether it was at TD Place or at CTC, it's just so special, and nothing kind of compares to how I felt in that moment.
You can hear how appreciative Leslie is there. Before this season, Corey, she wondered whether she'd even continue playing professional hockey in a more competitive than ever league. She felt like she was not keeping up. So Leslie started her off-season training earlier and put in numerous extra hours with her personal skating coach. And voila, she finished second in the league in goals scored this year and now has the Charge in a position to tie up the final tomorrow night.
Hard work pays off. That's great. And some disappointing news, though, for the Blue Bombers, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Jovan Santos Knox is going to be out for the entire season. The linebacker the Bombers acquired through free agency in February suffered a non-contact injury on the very first day of training camp. Here's his coach, Mike O'Shea.
It's emotional, obviously. Brought him in for a reason. I thought he was going to be a great fit for us this year, and so did he. It was nice to have him back. He's crushed, He knew what he wanted to do this year and what he wanted to be a part of, and that's been taken away from him.
Very tough news for both Jovan Santos Knox and the Bombers as a whole. Winnipeg getting ready through training camp to play its first preseason game against the Rough Riders. That's coming up on Saturday.
Thank you very much, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Regier with your morning sports. And speaking of morning sports, baseball is back in Winnipeg, and tonight is the Goldeyes home opener. And later on, after your 7:30 news, we're going to be speaking to one of the rookies on the team who's moved back up north to play for the Goldeyes as a catcher. Also coming up after 8, interesting conversation coming up. As you've been hearing in the news, Osborne Village is back, and some of the but is it though? Some of the neighborhood says it never went away, and others say it's revitalized because more businesses are opening up. We're going to speak with one of those business owners coming up here on Information Radio. In Winnipeg right now, we're sitting at 1. We're heading for a high today of 9. There's about a 30% chance of drizzle or rain tonight, and it is going to be dipping down to 0. But that looks like, in terms of the long-term forecast, the last time for a while we're going to be going down as low as 0 overnight. And it looks like the highs are going to be at the very least in the high teens for the next little while as well. And even way down the road in a week or so, we're looking more like in the mid 20s. So things are starting to get better and better. I feel like I'm saying it's going to be more spring-like for the last 2 months, but it looks like finally for real this time, it's going to start getting warmer. Up in Thompson, though, it is 0 right now, and you are heading for a high today of 11 with about a 30% chance of flurries, dipping down to 0 overnight. And Brandon, you're sitting at 2 right now. You're going to be seeing some potential drizzle and rain today. Your high today is 12. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio, and time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells. 7 new shops are about to open in Osborne Village. Police patrols combined with hundreds more residential units means more business in the area this year. Sierra Cafe is one of the new spots. Owner Michael Hickaway says he's opening this business to help bring the charm of Osborne back.
If you go back to the golden age of here, we used to get dropped off with nowhere to go and just wander for hours, and that was your night. So we're hoping to bring that back where you can come here and go nowhere else.
Hickaway says he has watched foot traffic growing steadily in the neighborhood for months. The Osborne Village Biz says more than 350 residential units have been built since 2024, and close to 500 more are either being developed or are under construction. Siblings separated in the 60s scoop have been reunited after spending decades apart. Winnipeggers Joe Lambert and Donna Morin hugged their sister Melody Roberts after she flew in from Oregon over the long weekend. The three are all in their 60s. They grew up knowing nothing about each other. Joe Lambert only learned about the 60s scoop after an outreach worker told him he may be a survivor.
Nothing left to live forward to. But then after I found out about the family, it's totally changed my life, you know. It's going to be fun, you know, like I get to meet a family, you know, like at this age. So it's a long time, you know, it's been a long time coming.
More than 20,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families in the 60s scoop. The siblings will spend 3 days in Winnipeg reconnecting. Lambert says he hopes to visit another brother in BC soon. The U.S. liquor industry has lost hundreds of millions of dollars since their products were taken off Canadian shelves. That is according to an American agriculture policy expert who says the impact could be felt by the industry for years. The province removed U.S. booze from liquor stores last year in reaction to American tariffs. Now Manitoba is selling the remaining inventory off at a discount price. Professor Andrew Muhammad says even if U.S. products return, the demand may not.
If I don't have California wine available and I'm a wine drinker, I'm going to look for alternatives. A person might decide that, well, this red wine from Argentina isn't half bad after all. And that person then will decide to not go back, at least not in any type of major way.
Manitoba Liquor and Lottery says the sale items are wines and liqueurs that would expire by fall. Proceeds from this sale will go to Manitoba charities. Canada's finance minister is in Paris right now for the second day of talks with G7 counterparts. So far, François-Philippe Champagne says the agenda has been dominated by the war in Iran and its effects on the global economy.
This is the largest energy challenge that we have faced in generations. So we're all looking at what we can do to ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Champagne says the group also discussed food security. Today's meetings are expected to focus on strategies to tackle terrorist funding and major financial crimes. The number of deaths linked to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is rising rapidly. The World Health Organization says there are now 130 suspected deaths and 500 presumed cases of the virus. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus heads the WHO and says quick action is needed.
I'm deeply concerned about the scale and the speed of the epidemic. We will convene the emergency committee today to advise us on temporary recommendations.
Tedros says he is concerned the outbreak is now spreading to urban areas where it can quickly infect more people. He also says there is no vaccine for this particular strain of Ebola. The WHO is releasing close to $4 million to help governments fight the outbreak. Canada's Defence Minister, David McGuinty, is going to make an announcement today at the Saskatchewan base of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. His visit comes amid speculation about the future of the Aerial Acrobatic Squadron. The Snowbirds have performed at thousands of air shows since 1971. David McGuinty has said the aircraft fleet is approaching the end of its life, and air demonstrations can continue only as long as the planes are safe. The federal government has apparently been looking for replacement options, but it is now it's not clear how long the Snowbirds can continue performing. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8, and you can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News Desk. Abby Adiyemi, what's going on with the weather?
Yeah, Corey, the province is seeing this really quiet spring day. Cloudy conditions in the southern part of the province, and we're seeing clearer conditions up north. Conditions down south, we're looking at 1 degree and 3 degrees depending on where you are in the city, and it's cloudy right now with a windy northern breeze coming our way. We're expecting a slim chance of morning drizzle today, and of course there's some afternoon showers in the mix at some point. We do warm up to 9 degrees, which is way off our seasonal high for this time. We're supposed to be around 20 for tonight. Expect some clear conditions, but we then drop close to that freezing point around 0. But tomorrow we're looking out for some sunny skies, and highs would get into the mid-teens, close to 20 degrees. From Morden towards Winkler and all the way to Port Perry, the Pena Valley region, we're seeing mostly cloudy skies there. 3 degrees right now, also aiming for a high of 11 later. There's a slim chance of showers in the forecast for that part of the province. Brandon and nearby, you're seeing cloudy skies. 2 degrees right now. Today you get to 12. There's a slim chance of afternoon showers in the forecast for you. Then we track it into the Pemna Valley region, where we're seeing, rather the Parkland region, where we're seeing cloudy skies around the Dauphin, Russell, Roblin area. 1 degree right now. We should see some clear conditions. Later, highs will be around 11. Gimli is at 3 degrees with some drizzle. High of 10. Mild winds in the forecast. The path flim from between -2 and 0 right now, with sunshine present there. A high of 14 in the forecast. Nowhere else is also enjoying some sunny conditions at -1, aiming for a high of 12. Thompson is mostly cloudy at 0. We see a high of 11 there. Lake, you're cloudy. Currently 4 degrees there, high of 13 later. While around the Gillam area, we're tracking some cloudy skies, -5 right now. You warm up to 5 degrees later. Then for Tuduli Lake, we're seeing -7 there. You get to 6 degrees. While for Churchill and the York region, we're looking at mostly cloudy skies with a good chance of flurries in the mix later in the day, and the highs would only be around 2. So province-wide, we're seeing more like this. I call it a stable spring day. Winnipeg, we're expecting a high of 9, cloudy skies, current temperatures, depending on where you are in the city, we are seeing 1 here, and then we're seeing 3 degrees at the airport.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's going on with the commute?
It's very lonely. I think that's the theme of the day, Corey. It's very lonely on the CBC commuter line today, but that to me sounds like things are moving smoothly out there on your drive this morning. But you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line if that does change, and that number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, next up here on Information Radio.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root.
Well, the Winnipeg Goldeyes baseball is back tonight in their home opener. The Goldeyes will be taking on the Kane County Cougars, and Raphael Pletier will be on the field. He's a Canadian rookie catcher, and he signed with the team this past summer. And Raphael joins us now in studio. Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, and welcome to Winnipeg. How long have you been in town for now?
About 3 weeks, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is your first year in a professional baseball league. How are you feeling for tonight's home opener?
I feel pretty good. I heard we're going to have a good crowd, so I'm excited.
Did you think it would be this cold for a home opener?
No, but hey, we'll make it work.
I imagine as a catcher too, like you're catching a lot of balls coming in fast. I was just thinking about and whenever I've played catching cold temperatures, it can hurt your hands.
Yeah, just catch it right and it won't hurt.
That's the key, isn't it?
But
There's
yeah.
some extra motivation there. So far in the preseason, you've actually hit also 2 home runs as well. So take us back to that moment in your first professional home run. What was going through your mind?
Well, I went to Australia last winter, so I got a few at bats there. So I think it got me ready for this preseason camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was excited to, I guess, perform and get to meet the new guys and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Did it feel good?
Yeah, it feels pretty good to see your hard work pays off.
Oh, that's great. So last year you were playing at the University of Kentucky as well, and now you're in a different city. Well, at least you're back in Canada. So what's the transition been like back from playing college ball to going pro?
Yeah, I mean college is more. I wouldn't say pro ball is not a team sport, but like pro ball is more like people are doing their own stuff and they have their own routine and stuff like that. So in that aspect, that's really different.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to be more disciplined then? Like, do you have to find your own thing more?
I feel like I was pretty disciplined before, but
Okay.
yeah, just having my own routine and finding what works for me and what doesn't. So yeah.
So you grew up in Repentigny, Quebec.
Yeah.
You know, what got you into baseball there?
I guess so. Back home, you play hockey during the winter, and then you play baseball during the summer. So that's kind of how I got into it. And my dad was a baseball player as well. So
okay, well, who did he play for?
Just his hometown and stuff. But
okay, I was gonna guess he played for the Expos or something like that.
No.
And you're a catcher. Why did you want to be a catcher?
I think being involved in every play is what I like the most, and being the leader. And yeah, just every pitch is your responsibility. So, like I like that as a catcher, I guess.
Okay. And what have you noticed since moving to Winnipeg about the baseball culture here? I know you've probably been pretty busy practicing and things like that. You'll probably start seeing it now that, you know, there's the after the home opener, seeing the crowds and stuff like that. But what have you noticed about the baseball culture here in Winnipeg?
Noticed that people care a lot about the Goldeyes. But yeah, I've heard that the guys, they tell me that the fans are awesome here. So I'm excited to see.
Oh, good. And it's also pretty cool, actually, we were just chatting before the mic went on here, that you're actually, like, the people step up to support the team a lot. Like, you have a host family that you're actually staying with while you're here as well, too. So how's that been?
So I just moved out last night, so...
okay, because you're in a hotel before, and now you're staying with the host family.
Yeah, but they're great. They welcome me very...
That's great. I mean, they must be baseball fans as well.
Yeah, they are.
That's awesome. And for yourself, I just want to go back to your role as a catcher. I mean, besides obviously maybe having to work in the cold a little bit, what are some of the toughest parts about being a catcher?
I think you have to be a psychologist in a way to, like, you need to know every pitcher, and not just like what they throw and stuff, but like how they think and how they react to certain things. So just gotta, like I said, be a psychologist and know your pitcher, and I think that's a hard part.
Mm-hmm. How hard is it to communicate with the pitcher? You gotta know him, but is that pretty stressful for you?
I mean, I think the most of the work is off the field. Like you get to know the guys off the field, and then you know what gets them like in the right lane when you get on the field. So
that must be tough with a short preseason. Like you're only here for about 3 weeks to try to get to know someone well enough to be able to work closely with them in that very intense connection between a pitcher and a catcher. What's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like just being with my pitchers off the field really helped me get to know them on the field, and every day I just keep learning new stuff about them. So I think that helps me a lot.
Mm-hmm. And so going into the home opener tonight, what can fans expect from you and your team this season?
I think we have a good team. We just got to play together, and I think we're going to be all right for the season.
Well, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, guys.
Raphael Pelletier is a rookie catcher for the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Their home opener is tonight against the Kane County Cougars. First pitch is at 6:30 p.m.
No shoes in the south in the sun, running around and not tattoos. You melt into me like candy and the heat gets tricky. Salt on the rim, you and ice, I got a slice of life, I wanna live life. Get it right, one time. You can drive me crazy, drive me half nuts. You can drive all night to see me. Take a chance on your luck. You can drive a Hummer in the summer. You can even drive ladies in my Mercedes, but you can't drive my truck. Let's go. Thinking back and out there, it all went off track fast. Did you feel that? Looking back, remembering the past in the Mad Jack Cadillac, tires went flat. Yeah. Hot red little Corvette princess girl, you better get it right. Come on. You can drive me crazy, drive me half nuts. You can drive all night to see me. Take a chance on your luck.
Well, if you're listening to that and thinking, is that Shania Twain? Kind of sounds like it. Yep, sure is. It's a brand new track by her called Dirty Rosie. It's actually a single off her new album that's coming out in July. And ahead of that, she's going through a bit of a boost in her career here. In June, she'll be playing Wembley Stadium in London, opening up for Harry Styles.
Manitoba may have a reputation for being cold and flat, but our podcast isn't. I'm Marcy Marcusa, the warmest host on the prairies. Even when my podcast, This is Manitoba, is exploring some challenging issues. I'm never flat when it comes to holding our leaders to account. Some of those interviews have been called spicy. If you care about this province, check out This is Manitoba, with new episodes dropping every Wednesday.
And this Wednesday, actually, we're going to be exploring our series that we've been having ongoing called The Young and the Jobless, about youth unemployment. And we're actually continuing that series today, right now. And throughout the series, we've heard young Manitobans express many frustrations with job hunting, especially applying for a job and never hearing back.
It kind of makes me feel like my resume, or just me in general, isn't kind of like good enough to get a reply, or if they're just like, they just don't really care to try and reach out and be like, hey, we're not really gonna hire you. I'd rather get a rejection than just like not get anything.
The lack of care and reaching out is kind of keeping our unemployment rates up. I think it kills the hope in our youth.
So we're hearing from young Manitobans looking for jobs, but for job seekers in Ontario, things are slightly different. As of January, employers are required to inform applicants whether a hiring decision has been made within 45 days of the last interview, or in Gen Z terms, an interviewer can no longer ghost you. As well, employers must post the salary range of a job and disclose whether AI is used in their hiring process. And our next guest says while the intent is good, not much has actually changed for our eastern neighbors. Nita Chinzer is a professor of leadership and organizational management at the University of Guelph. Good morning.
Good morning. Interesting topic for the day.
Yes, certainly. So it's been 5 months since Bill 149 came into effect in Ontario. So what impact would you say it's had so far?
It's had a marginal impact when we take a look at employers posting their job pay rates. So we are seeing that happen more. And the issue is that generally in Canada, we have a lot of small employers. And small employers have a really hard time keeping up with what the new rules are, and they simply don't have the intelligence to figure out how much is this job worth. Sometimes they're hoping the market will tell them how much their job is worth. For example, they might hope that the market's going to have some conversation where they have a great candidate and they say, how much are you willing to get paid, or what did you get paid in your last job, as an indicator of the value. So these small businesses don't really come with these massive HR systems. The large businesses, though, are really succeeding in this space because they usually have like pre-established pay bands, and so they know what the pay range will be. When it comes to letting people know that, hey, you didn't get the job, we haven't heard a lot about what changes have happened. But anecdotally, I teach about 700 students, and those students have been on the market. And from what my conversations with them are, they haven't noticed a significant change. So they're not saying that I'm suddenly getting a greater rate of people telling me that I am not getting the job. Right. So, it's moved the law, but it hasn't moved the experience that much.
And so there isn't change, but obviously it is law. So how is it being enforced?
Yeah, so the enforcement's actually a little bit questionable, because with all of these changes, what happens is if some violation happens, you have to go to the Employment Standards Act. So it's almost, they're not proactively policing it. They're not going out and taking a look at Indeed job postings, or going out and having people pretend to be employees, go through the interview, and then seeing if people will be caught. So it's up to us to then say, hey, I contacted this company and I had an interview with them. 45 days have passed and they did not tell me whether I was given the job or not. So most of us assume that we are not going to get the job. The reason why this kind of enforcement is actually problematic is because I still have hopes as a job seeker that maybe they're just delayed and they're not making that decision yet. So what's the likelihood that I would then go on a potential employer, if not today, then tomorrow, and go and tell ESA, hey, listen, this company's violating the law? So just the basic politics of the power imbalance between the hiring party and the job seeker make it very unlikely that the job seeker is going to take the action required to identify violators.
And I imagine when you're on a job hunt in general, you're not necessarily thinking, okay, I'm going to, take the time to figure out how to report this company to the government because it's been, I'm going to mark 45 days on my calendar, and if they don't get back to me, things like that, right?
I don't know if it's the time or if it's the reputational damage.
Right.
So a lot of times companies are like, maybe I don't have a good fit for you now, but we're hopeful that we've built a relationship. They might know somebody, or maybe in the future they're hiring. I might see them again as an employer. Like, I don't want to take personal reputational damage. And the Employment Standards Act is anonymous. But there's still this idea that people feel like they might burn a bridge,
right,
rather than the time that's required.
So what difference does it make, to hear back following an interview, even if you don't get a job?
I think the difference really comes down to closure, especially if people are trying to, say, juggle two options. So if you're between option A, which is the one that you are being given an offer on, and then option B that you're hopeful for. So something in that interview made you think that you were a good fit. Sometimes employers inflate their language, and they might say things like, I'm really looking forward to working with you, or I had a great conversation. And we as job seekers view that not as positive reinforcement. We view that as kind of this assumption that we might be very strong candidates for that job. And so in that case, we're kind of bouncing between these two. And some people are like, oh, if only I knew. But don't forget, you're not passive in this process. If you are, in fact, given one job offer and you're waiting for the second, it's a very common practice, especially from those of us who have been in the workforce for a while. It's a very common practice to email that company and say, hey, listen, I've got a competing offer. I need to hear back from you. And at the worst, they're going to relook at your file and try to figure out if they can expedite the answer to you. At the best, you're going to look like a better candidate. Somebody else wants you. So maybe this company missed something, and they might be a little bit more lenient or open-minded or reevaluate you differently. So it does kind of make you more desirable. I would suggest that you do that rather than going through your standards acts, your labor standards acts.
I also want to focus a little bit about the AI disclosure aspect of this law. How might disclosing AI use, change how someone applies for a job, and how are companies adjusting to this new part of the law?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask those over 40, they will say, well, okay, well, that makes sense. I'm not going to put discretionary information, maybe information that I worked for this company in this position, and during that time I helped grow sales from this number to that number, because it's almost like the privacy of the company that you were working with. You don't want to disclose too much on your resume. When I speak to those under 40, they just roll their eyes and laugh at me. They're like, whether it was the law or not, we always assumed that we were being pushed through some form of AI, thinking that companies would be silly to not use screening tools. Now, of course, that's naive, because we know the screening tools have built-in and reinforced biases. For example, Amazon famously used AI screening, and it began to create biases against women and certain ethnicities. So that became a problem, and they took it away. And, Amazon's a beast. They can build systems as they like. They rebuilt a second system, and it started to reinforce the biases. So that's why I think the people who have a bit more experience in the workforce are more skeptical of AI, whereas those who are a little bit younger or a little bit less experienced are like, yeah, why wouldn't they? The other thing that's really interesting on the flip side is that we don't have any expectations for employees or job seekers to disclose if they use AI on their resume. And again, when I speak to employers, they're like, most of them are. Like, we're having a really hard time differentiating between a strong resume and a weak resume, because the majority of people are feeding in their resume and our job description and asking some form of AI to make it a best fit.
Wow.
So that's why we're seeing a big move away from, this conversation that AI use in recruitment is odd. Everyone's expected to be using it, and that's the experience that they're having.
Right. But would forcing companies to disclose it repel them from actually using AI in the first place, you think, or no?
No, I think the companies are doing what's most efficient for them. And even this idea of not getting a call back when you're not given a job offer, it's simply because they might have had 300 applicants. And like I said, a lot of these small companies, they don't have a full-time staff member available. They don't have an extra 10 hours of staff time to go to each and every person and say, hey, listen, you didn't get the job, sorry, you didn't get the job, if they don't already have the systems in place. Large companies are just being lazy if they're not doing that, because it's legitimately just one check on your applicant tracking system to say reject all candidates.
Before we go here, for people who are maybe in the job market now, is there a right way, in your opinion, for youth to approach or navigate this new world of hiring? We just got about a minute or so left here. So
Yeah, 100%. The best thing you can do is network. The idea I told you about employers saying everyone's resume looks about the same, everyone's about equally fit. Employers are looking for familiarity. They're looking for similarness. So you want to go out and meet employers. You want to expand your network. We've gone from the space of people going online and 3,000 people applying for a job. You got a 1 in 3,000 chance of success. Weeding through those is a nightmare, and we know that employers only look at the most recent applicants. So if you applied early and then they're not looking at them, like it's not really a good match strategy. Instead, try to think about the types of industries you want to be in, the types of jobs that you want to do. Join associations, meet people. If you're playing soccer or basketball, talk to people and they might know somebody. We've moved away from online recruitment now very much into like a pipeline recruitment strategy. Networking is still your number one way to find a job.
Well, Nita, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time this morning.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Nita Chinzer is a professor of leadership and organizational management at the University of Guelph. Time now for news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, inflation is rising sharply across the country. In Manitoba, inflation jumped to 4.3% in April from 3% in March. That is among the highest inflation in Canada. Nationally, Statistics Canada says the pace of inflation rose to 2.8%. We'll hear more on that. And at least 5 new businesses have opened in Osborne Village this year. 7 others are in the works. We're going to hear about this resurgence in Osborne Village in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. And coming up after 8 o'clock, we're going to hear from one of those business owners. That's coming up after World Report. Stay tuned.
On Q. I'm Garvey Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. Behind big music stars Canadians love, people like Michael Bublé, Anne Murray, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Jan Arden, Bryan Adams. There's the legendary manager Bruce Allen. He's finally getting his laurels, and we're putting him under the spotlight to tell his story.
To have a great band, you have to have a great leader.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
You have a nice long weekend, get outside, enjoy the nice weather. When you came back in, did you check yourself for ticks? Tick season is here. We'll talk about what you need to look out for and how a new tick that causes an allergy to red meat and dairy in parts of the U.S. is spreading to Canada. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Helen Mann. The cost of living continues to climb for Canadians. Statistics Canada has just released its April inflation report. It shows the annual rate rose to 2.8%, up from 2.4% in March. CBC's senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong is with me in studio. Peter, what is behind this jump?
Gasoline. I think everybody knows it. Energy prices writ large. Anybody who's even walked past the gas station knows what's been happening there. StatCan says that gasoline prices across Canada were up 28.6% in April. Remember, this time last year, Canada removed the consumer carbon tax. So there's an impact, what they call the base year effect, that's adding to that surge in energy inflation. But the interesting thing here, Helen, is that as high as this is, and it is high, 2.8%. This is the fastest increase we've seen in 2 years, but it's still slower than economists had been expecting. And that's largely due to core prices holding their ground. Now, core inflation, which strips out volatile stuff like food and gasoline, it came in at 2%. And what that tells us here is that surge we're seeing in energy prices, that surge we've seen at the gas pumps, but also for diesel and jet fuel and cargo ship fuel as well, that hasn't yet bled over into other sectors. It doesn't take much for a company that's seeing an increase in what it costs to ship stuff, pass that on to consumers. But we haven't seen that yet. That is the heaving sigh of relief you hear from policymakers across the country, but it is also the thing we will be watching.
Peter, thanks very much.
You bet.
Peter Armstrong, the CBC's senior business correspondent in our Toronto studio. Well, amid recent setbacks for electric vehicle production in North America, Prime Minister Mark Carney is heading to a small Quebec community which may someday hold the key to battery production in Canada. It's not far from the site of Nouveau Monde Graphite's Mattawini mine. For more, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, this mine was referred to the Major Projects Office last fall. Why has it been such a focus for the government?
The ambition for this particular site is to turn it into one of the largest open-pit graphite mining operations in North America. Now, why graphite? Well, it's key to the supply chains for greener advanced manufacturing. Lithium-ion batteries drive electric vehicles, but they're also now in demand for storage facilities to boost the capacity of Canada's electricity grid. It's what smooths out the peaks and valleys of supply and demand. Graphite's also used in nuclear reactors. It has a number of strategically important uses for the military, not just in their vehicles, but it's essential for aerospace engineering and stealth technology. This particular mine was not only referred to the Major Projects Office last November, but Export Development Canada and the Canada Infrastructure Bank has already given it over $450 million in debt financing. It received an $100 million investment last month from the Canada Growth Fund, part of a larger financing package that also involved the Quebec government. And as it begins production, the federal government's already committed to purchase roughly 3/4 of its production for Canada and allied countries. The Carney government says it's essential for national security, and federal taxpayers also have a huge stake.
So what hurdles remain?
Well, there are no guarantees, right, with emerging technologies. Plenty of business risks here. That's why government financing key to getting it off the ground in the first place. And local development at this site wasn't without protest. The Manawana-Tikamek First Nation signed an impact benefit agreement with the mine late in 2024, giving its official consent following a long consultation process. It's going to share the financial benefit, including jobs, help monitor local environmental impacts. But work continues to persuade everyone in the community that this is the right way forward.
Janice, thank you.
You're welcome.
U.S. federal, state, and local police are tracing the steps of 2 teenagers who opened fire outside a mosque in California. 3 people are dead after the attack at the Islamic Center of San Diego. The suspects are believed to have died from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. As Steve Futterman reports, this is being investigated as a hate crime.
Investigators here say they know who did it. They also believe they know the basic motive: anti-Islamic hate. That still doesn't explain the troubling question: what triggered 2 teenagers, 17 and 18, to carry out the deadly attack, then, according to police, kill themselves? The attack occurred just before noon at San Diego's largest mosque, which also houses an elementary school and a middle school. The 2 gunmen never got inside any of the buildings. They were confronted by a security guard and 2 staff members of the school. All 3 were killed by the gunmen.
We were having lunch and I heard at least a dozen shots.
This neighbor was nearby when the attack took place.
Then I called 911.
The security guard is being labeled as a hero who very possibly prevented additional deaths. San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall.
The security guard was able to minimize the situation to the front area of the mosque. I don't want to speculate, but at this point, I think it's fair to say his actions were heroic, and undoubtedly he saved lives today.
Authorities have recovered what they describe as hate-filled writings. One of the guns used in the attack had hate language etched onto the weapon. 2 hours before the shootings, the mother of one of the gunmen alerted law enforcement, saying her son had taken a number of weapons from the home. Police desperately tried to locate the teenager's vehicle to prevent a possible attack, but could not do so in time. Steve Futterman, CBC News, San Diego.
The number of deaths linked to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is rising rapidly. The World Health Organization says there are now 130 suspected deaths and 500 presumed cases of the virus. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is the head of the WHO. He says quick action is needed.
I'm deeply concerned about the scale and the speed of the epidemic. We will convene the emergency committee today to advise us on temporary recommendations.
Tedros says he is concerned the outbreak is now spreading to urban areas where it can quickly infect more people. He also says there is no vaccine for this particular strain of Ebola. The WHO is releasing close to $4 million to help governments fight the outbreak. The son of the founder of the Mango Fashion Group is in police custody, being questioned about his father's death. Isaac Andek died when he fell off a cliff during a family hike near Barcelona in December of 2024. Forbes says he was worth $4.5 billion at the time of his death. His son Jonathan is now under arrest, and local media report police are looking into a possible homicide. Some women in the Halifax area are decrying what they call an unacceptable wait for a mammogram. There are ongoing staffing challenges, and right now, screening appointments are being booked well into next year. The CBC's Carolyn Ray reports.
I think we need to have a voice, and I think we need to make changes.
Cynthia McCutcheon thought she was being proactive by calling now to book her mammogram for the fall. But she was left speechless when the booking clerk told her the next available appointment in the Halifax area.
Well, when she started to say July, I was thinking, oh, that's a little bit too early. And then when she threw in 2027, I was really shocked.
Nova Scotia's wait times are now twice as long as Prince Edward Island. Some clinics in Toronto book within 2 weeks. Cheryl Coolin, who also lives in Halifax, found a lump in her breast last year. She's supposed to be checked every 6 months, but her next appointment isn't until next April.
Here I am supposedly at risk, and I have to wait. You know, how many people are going undiagnosed?
According to the Canadian Cancer Society, Nova Scotia has the lowest survival rate of breast cancer in the country. The province's breast screening program is run by the IWK Health Centre. It says the biggest challenge is staffing. There's a national shortage of medical radiation technologists. In Nova Scotia, there's a 30% vacancy rate. McCutcheon says she knows all too well the importance of catching problems early. Her grandmother died of breast cancer.
Why are women in Nova Scotia being penalized?
The IWK is telling the women to keep calling in hopes of landing a cancellation. But even then, those last-minute appointments could be anywhere in the province. Carolyn Ray, CBC News, Halifax.
Canada's Defence Minister David McGuinty will be making an announcement shortly at the Saskatchewan base of the Canadian Forces Snowbirds. A visit comes amid speculation about the future of the Aerial Acrobatic Squadron. Since 1971, the Snowbirds have performed at thousands of air shows. McGuinty has said the aircraft fleet is approaching the end of its life, and air demonstrations can continue only as long as the planes are safe. This is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Helen Mann. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Hope you had yourselves a lovely, yet I know very cold, long weekend. It is 1 degree only right now here at the Forks. We are heading for a high of 9 today, but I want to promise you, but I feel like I can't. It is warm weather on the way. 17 is the high tomorrow, 19 on Thursday. Coming up this hour on the show, Osborne Village was once named Canada's greatest neighborhood, but the strip south of Winnipeg's downtown has seen several businesses close. We're going to speak to a business owner who's been there since the 80s.
The village never went anywhere. I never went anywhere. We're still here.
Stay tuned for that conversation coming up right here on CBC. 8:11 right now. Let's check in with Heather Wells with a look at your news headlines.
Good morning. Well, inflation is rising sharply right across the country. In Manitoba, inflation jumped to 4.3% in April from 3% in March. Those numbers just into us from Statistics Canada. Nationally, StatsCan says the annual pace of inflation rose to 2.8% in April amid higher gas prices from the Iran war. So we'll hear more coming up as well. Siblings separated in the 60s Scoop have been reunited after spending decades decades apart, Winnipeggers Joe Lambert and Donna Moran hugged their sister Melody Roberts after she flew in from Oregon over this long weekend. We'll hear about that experience in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Abby Adeyemi, what's going on with the weather?
Well, it's more like cloudy conditions in the southern part of the province. Here in Winnipeg, we're still stuck at 1 degree at the Forks and 3 at the airports. Windy conditions coming from the north. We do have a slim chance of morning drizzle, and then we may see some showers this afternoon. Our high for today, we're looking at 9 degrees, and then we drop sharply to 0, but some sunny conditions on its way tomorrow. Now, across the regions, down south, a similar cool start. We're seeing temperatures really holding steady around 3 degrees for most of the regions, right from the Pembina Valley region all the way through to the Parkland region this morning. But it's cloudy. We will see highs between 11 and 12. Then we look up north, Basically, we're seeing temperatures around -7 towards Tudula Lake, -6 around Churchill, 4 degrees around Lynn Lake, and 3 degrees in the Thompson region right now. So it's more like a spring-like conditions. But Winnipeg, we're expecting a high of 9 today. At the Forks, it is 1.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Sierra Sanders, what's happening with the commute?
Not too much, Corey. It's been a lonely morning on the CBC commuter line, which I guess is for you out there driving or however you're getting around today, that is pretty good. To me, that sounds like things are moving along smoothly, but just wanted to give a heads up on some construction projects that are starting today and will last some time and could affect your commute. The first one is the Plessis Road closure. So all southbound lanes of Plessis between Duggold Road to Provincial Trunk Highway 100 will be closed for street construction from today until September 4th. So they're asking you to use alternate routes there. As well, a closure on Dufferin Avenue. So the westbound median lane and all eastbound lanes of Dufferin between McGregor Street to Powers Street will be closed for street construction from today until July 7th. And only westbound travel will be available. So you're going to want to expect delays and possibly find an alternate route to get through that area. So a couple of construction things to keep in mind, but we still have a little bit of time left in the show. So if there is something that pops up here in the next couple of minutes, in the next 20 or so minutes, you can give me a call. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as you drive through Osborne Village and you notice the new condominiums and maybe some new restaurants popping up in the area, you may have asked the question, is Osborne Village back? It was once named Canada's greatest neighborhood, and according to Osborne Village Biz, since 2024, 19 businesses in the area closed down, but 29 others have come to the area. And now the nonprofit says it's seeing fewer and fewer vacancies each year. And one of the businesses coming to the neighborhood is Sierra. It's a new cafe, restaurant, and bar planned to open this summer. And this is what the owner, Michael Hickaway, told CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco.
Right now we're in our new space that's under renovation, hopefully to open up within a couple months. I think now is just the right timing. I think that there was a lot happening in the village, and there was a bit of a reset since COVID. We lost a lot of businesses, so unfortunately it's time to change and have new things start. I think it still has the heart and the soul, but I think it needs people to rebuild. The generation has changed. A lot of the people that have been coming here are now in nursing homes. The zoo, right, where we're standing, I used to actually play guitar right in that corner for peanuts, and that's where I'm gonna put my stage. So I mean, there's a lot of these places that I grew up having that are gone, so we want to, even in a minor way, bring it back.
That was Michael Hickaway. He's opening up a restaurant, cafe, and bar in Osborne Village this summer called Sierra. And someone else who is passionate about the neighborhood is Judy Coy. She's the owner of Silver Lotus in Osborne Village, and she's been a business owner in the area since the 1980s and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you say you've seen the village bounce back before. Can you just tell us a little bit about, give us a rough overview over the last 30 years of the cycles that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I think I can probably talk to about 36 of those years. I think it's like everything else, it is cyclical, and there's ups and downs. There are things like pandemics, and there are things like recessions, and there is just nature as well. And I think Michael was correct in that, saying there was a little bit of a downturn, but there always has been, and it's always rebounded. It's still a great place to be. And I think what keeps us going is that it is more of a community than anything else.
I think last time we had you on the show, we were at Little Sister, actually. We were doing a live show there. And it was during, I think, one of those downturns. I think you could safely say Starbucks had just left. Safety was a big concern in the area. So what's changed since then?
Well, I mean, I think there's also another story there saying why Starbucks left. There might be a different reason for them leaving. However, I think safety, that was after COVID, and I think that there was a lot of people not wanting to go out, so the streets were a little bit emptier than they usually are. Right now, it's robust. I think that's what's changed, is that people aren't as afraid to go out. I think we're not recovering from the pandemic, and so I think people are venturing. There's a lot of new people coming into the apartments and the condos in the area, too, so it just rebuilds the street traffic.
Does this feel like a real proper recovery? Does it feel like any other time, like where it was, during its maybe, was there a golden age, and is this coming close to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think when you can go back, you can always say the good old days, right? But I do think that I think what it is that people have to invest, and I think when you see people investing like Michael, I think it's really great for the environment. It gives people, I guess, a faith that there's going to be a little bit of a rebuild. There's newness involved. And I think people like to get on that kind of train when people are investing and cleaning up and wanting to make something succeed.
And, as you mentioned, it's kind of cyclical, right? You've seen those cycles over the past 30 years. But how do you stop that cycle and just keep Osborne improving over the next 3 decades?
I think that's a really good question, but I do think it takes investment. I think it takes investment from the city. I do know that we're not getting as much funding for the biz this year, which I think is really sad, because as opposed to other businesses that have a bit more budget, ours is smaller because our business numbers are smaller, but our area is more intense. We have more of a population. So I do think that if we could keep the city investing in us, and I think if every business invests in themselves by cleaning up and making sure that it's security, I think we'll see that trend go upwards.
Are you seeing improvements in your business in terms of people coming in, loss prevention, things like that?
Definitely with the police, the loss prevention, and just attitude of feeling safe and venturing is way better than like at COVID or right after COVID as well. Yeah.
And
more people.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about investment. You said you want to see more money for the biz. How else would you like to see money spent in the area, whether that's private or public?
That's a very good question. I just feel that if you keep a place clean and have it look beautiful, so by putting flowers and maybe some outdoor music and hanging baskets and sweeping every day, and everyone taking the posters off their poles in the front, I think just things like that really help an area. I think it lifts it up.
And what do you love about Osborne Village in the area? What's kept you there for 30 years? Because there's been so many businesses that have opened and closed, but you've stayed.
I'm very stubborn, I suppose. I've been really lucky to have my family join the business, and that really I do love going to work. For the most part, I enjoy every day. Yeah, but I do think that it's nice to have a sense of freedom, and I really love. I do. The customers that come in, characters and all, it's what makes a good business, I think. Yeah, I've really been supported, I believe, by the community.
Mm-hmm. Is there a time in Osborne's history when it's been at its best, would you say? And what was happening at the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's been recessions, so definitely the 90s were tough. And then it kind of rebounded, I think, if I remember correctly, in the 2000s. And there was another recession in the 2000s. So I do think there's been ups and downs. But I think probably 20 years ago would have been a real bump. And I do think that there were businesses, every business was open, and every business was it was all full. So restaurants and retail alike.
And finally here, just in terms of, I just want to kind of focus a little bit on safety here as well. What is the safety situation? Because we hear of other areas of the city's not doing so great right now. We just did some stories recently around the Maryland and Portage area. What is it looking like right now? And what do you hope needs to be done? You mentioned the biz, but to keep it feeling safe for people.
I do think the police presence has been a really big change for us. I think it gives people support in the neighborhood. The police have made a real good effort at trying to get to know individuals, people, and when they are on, they come in and check in most of the stores at least, 2 or 3 times a week. So it really does make you feel like you've got someone to talk to. Whereas in the past, if you had anything happen, it would take 24 hours for them to even come and visit you, figure out what happened.
Are you hearing about that sense of safety from customers as well, who maybe feel more comfortable just kind of strolling up and down?
Definitely.
Well, we'll leave it there, Judy. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Judy Coy is the owner of Silver Lotus in Osborne Village. And if you want to read more about this story, my colleague Santiago Arias Orozco wrote all about it and read a bunch of people in the area. You can read about it at cbc.ca/Manitoba. We've got a song here that is, I guess, set somewhat in Osborne Village. It's about that iconic building, the Roslyn. It's that big, beautiful red building that you see when you drive across Osborne Bridge south into the village. It's just on your left there. This is by a band called Red Moon Road. This is Words of the Walls.
First nights and last days, the occasional new paint. The floors are better, a little scuffed and scarred. Seems over the long years, everyone's lived here. Rode the elevator made of bars. How does it still run? It's carried everyone getting started. These character apartments, the rooms at the Roslyn have seen it all. Birth of the stories, the sorrows and glories. If you could only hear the words of the walls. A lost lover's laughter and the tears that came after. All the different ships that pass in the night. And the same square of sun never fails to come. So warm and a little too bright. Shines till the day is done. Making way for the next ones getting us started. These character apartments, the rooms at the Roslyn have seen it all. The birth of the stories, the sorrows and glories. If you could only hear the words of the walls. Lessons learned, counters burned by the candles blazing at both ends. Barely paid their rent till the time was spent, and cardboard boxes came out again. Corrugated bookends. The timeless transcendence of young independence never gets old, though the lease is done. Another moving day comes, making way for the next ones getting us started. These character
Well, that brings me back. I actually used to live in the Roslyn. It's got this elevator that you actually still have to physically pull the door open, this heavy metal door, and trying to move a couch up that elevator is absolutely zero fun. But what an incredible building. If you ever had a chance to be in there and check it out, I think for the first month or so that I lived there, I couldn't find my own apartment. I'm getting lost. It's quite the incredible space. That is a Red Moon Row with their song all about the Roslyn. It's called Words of the Walls. Well, up next here on CBC Radio 1, what does it mean to grow up and never see yourself in the stories around you? No reflection of your language, no your connection to land, your way of knowing. That was the reality for Anishinaabe artist Sandra Laurent. She grew up in Northern Ontario, surrounded by land that wasn't just scenery. It was alive. But in books and on stage, those ways of seeing the world were missing. So she created them. Laurent first wrote She Holds Up the Stars as a novel, and it tells the story of a girl, her horse, in the search for the truth about her mother. And now She Holds Up the Stars is a stage production. The multi-genre production intertwines storytelling, life-size puppetry, theater, and orchestral music. And Sandra Laurent told Unreserved host Rosanna Deerchild how her latest production doesn't just challenge how stories are told, it's a challenge to orchestras and how they tell Indigenous stories.
When I grew up in Temagami, in Northern Ontario, but I think this is true for all across Canada really at the time, was, I was really wanting to find books that were about Indigenous people, and I wanted books that had a lot of pride and a feeling of, our epic size, not these diminished stories about who we are by someone else who's written them, but I really wanted something much more positive and full of our humor, and I wanted it to be sad. I wanted it to be everything like we always want in a story, and I just could not find those books. There were a couple of books that I found, but they were so sad. And so when you're, and you find something that is even makes you feel even smaller. And it makes sense, though, because Indigenous people were writing books at that time. We just weren't getting published. And I believe that the publishers seemed to gravitate towards stories that were about issues, were about problems, were about, that fits sort of more within the stereotypical paradigm of who we are. Mm-hmm. So that just gets reflected back to us. And when we're young, we're very impressionable. So we just we don't know how to have the critical eye and the critical ear to things yet, to develop that. So it just kind of goes right in. And so I wanted to write a story, the kind of book that I really needed at the time. Something that was positive, something that was authentic, something that really told the journey of a child, of a young preteen that didn't speak down to who we are or anything like that, but just told the story and had all those aspects of humor, of sadness, of magic. Mm-hmm. And, I really wanted people to have a different relationship to land in terms of reading the novel, but also on stage.
That's Sandra Laurent. She's Temagama Anishinaabe from Northern Ontario. She is the creator of She Holds Up the Stars. And you can hear her more this week on Unreserved, which airs today at 1 p.m. on CBC Radio 1. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 3 degrees. Another chilly day. Just one more to get through. It's going to be cloudy with a chance of showers through the day. A bit of a north breeze and a high of 9. Siblings separated in the 60s scoop have been reunited after spending decades apart. Winnipeggers Joe Lambert and Donna Moran hugged their sister Melanie Roberts as she flew in from Oregon over the long weekend. The three are all in their 60s and grew up knowing nothing about each other. Joe Lambert only learned about the 60s scoop after an outreach worker told him he may be a survivor.
Nothing left to look forward to. But then after I found out about the family, it's totally changed my life, It's going to be fun, like I get to meet a family, like at this age. So it's a long time, it's been a long time coming.
More than 20,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families in the 60s scoop. The siblings are going to spend 3 days in Winnipeg reconnecting, and Lambert says he hopes to visit another brother in BC soon. At least 5 new businesses has opened in Osborne Village this year. 7 others are in the works. Good news for an area that's seen declining foot traffic since the pandemic. Close to 20 businesses have shut their doors in Osborne Village since 2024. This year, the number of openings outnumbers closings. Zora Gervais is the executive director of the Osborne Village Biz.
It's an unusual shift for Osborne in that we're having a lot of investment over this fairly short time frame, but it speaks to the vibrancy of the neighborhood and people want to be here.
Gervais says more than 350 residential units have been built, and close to 500 are either being developed or are under construction. Manitoba has the highest inflation, among the highest inflation in Canada, as prices surged last month. Statistics Canada this morning reports the national rate is now 2.8%. It was 2.4% in February, in March. In Manitoba, inflation jumped to 4.3% in April from 3% the month before. Only Nova Scotia has the same inflation. StatsCan says gas prices are fueling the surge across the country. The cost of gasoline was 28.6% higher year over year in April. Clothes and shoes also cost more. Well, U.S. liquor is back on Manitoba shelves at a discount price. The province removed U.S. booze from liquor stores last year as part of retaliatory measures against American tariffs. Now, Manitoba is offering a 30% discount on leftover inventory. An American agriculture policy expert says the U.S. liquor industry has lost hundreds of millions of dollars from that ban. Andrew Muhammad says the impact could be felt for years to come.
The way to think about it is not just sort of this one-time loss, but this sort of loss repeated over the next decade or so as we sort of pay some price or consequence for losing a share of the Canadian market.
The province says its position on selling U.S. liquor has not changed. Proceeds from the U.S. liquor sale will go to Manitoba charities. Well, now to Buffalo, New York.
Over the line comes Newhook. Shooting. Scores! Alex Newhook! Olé! 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 And Montreal is going to play Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final.
The Montreal Canadiens beating the Buffalo Sabres in a sudden death overtime last night to win Game 7, the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The final score there, 3-2. Montreal now plays Carolina in the semifinals. That game is on Thursday for the first start of the series. And in the Professional Women's Hockey League, the Ottawa Charge staving off elimination, beating the Montreal Victoire 2-1 in Game 3 of the Walter Cup final. Montreal leads that series now 2-1. Game 4 is tomorrow in Ottawa. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells at your CBC News desk. Sierra Sanders is in with a final look at the commute.
It's been a pretty quiet morning on the commute, Corey. Not too many calls on the CBC commuter line, which to me sounds like it was a pretty smooth ride for you this morning and should hopefully continue to be a smooth ride for you here as we head towards 9 o'clock here in the morning. But just want to note some quick construction closures that are starting up today. We have Plessis Road, so all southbound lanes of Plessis between Dugald Road to Provincial Trunk Highway 100 will be closed for street construction from today until September 4th. Try and find alternate routes there. As well, there's a closure on Dufferin Avenue, so the westbound median lane and all eastbound lanes of Dufferin between McGregor Street to Power Street will be closed for street construction as well from today, May 19th, until July 7th, and only westbound travel will be available. So expect delays and use alternate routes through there.
Thank you very much, Sierra.
Thank you.
Abby Adiyemi, what's going on with the weather?
Overall, cloudy skies and a slim chance of showers for regions in the south, while up north we're seeing sunny conditions with seasonal temperatures there. For the city, we will see more of these cloudy conditions with temperatures heading to the high of 9 degrees later. Expect breezy conditions from the north as this will keep things really cool before we see some clear skies tonight. Tomorrow, sunshine on its way. We get to be in those meetings from tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adiemi. Thanks to our associate producer, Sofia Peralta Baron, and Chloe Friesen for the work on the show today, as well as Jim Agapito, our reporter in unit, as well as our videographer, Travis Golby. Our news team, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, Megan Ketchison, and Darren Bernhardt, and as well Sierra Sanders, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Morash, our in-studio team. Nelly Gonzalez is our show producer, and Leif Larson is our senior producer of audio. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. She'll be back in the host seat tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. The Current is next.